I'm sure everything's fine. Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Tri-F Podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. And today, we're talking about Kenneth Copeland. Trevor, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Apparently, I'm better than you. You sound like you're about to die.
Yeah, I had some biscuits and gravy. They were really good, but there was a little too much sausage.
And you're paying for it, huh?
Yeah. Well, my toilet's paying for it.
TMI! All right, well. No, so, okay. So you were wanting to talk about Mr. Kenneth Copeland last week, and that's how we're going to start the show. We'll start talking about, all right, Jess says we sound good. Thank you, Jessica. We appreciate that.
Sound good?
That's a relief.
How does Jess sound?
Well, she's on the chat, or in the chat, so she doesn't sound like anything. But anyway, So we're starting off with Kenneth Copeland, and then we are talking about Virginia Roberts, because I'm very upset about that whole situation. We'll get into that.
Who's she again?
She is one of Epstein's victims, and she was. They said she unalived herself, which I don't buy for a second, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
I don't want to buy it either.
Wes Huff is on Piers Morgan. That's kind of your baby. I don't know anything about. I didn't watch that, so we'll see.
I didn't watch the full thing. It's just kind of a short, how long? 14-minute clip.
Okay.
Of just him answering a couple questions from Piers Morgan, and they're bangers.
Sweet.
They're really good.
All right. And then we're going to end the night with a conversation about hell that we promised last week. So, because
promised.
I promised, and I did the homework, and I wanted
to
flesh out, some of the scriptures and stuff that I was getting my ideas from. So, with all that said, all right, we are beginning this.
Good luck.
Good luck. Okay, so let's start with Kenneth Copeland. Trevor, why'd you want to talk about Kenneth Copeland? Isn't he old news by now?
Well, I don't know. Is he?
I don't know. I heard. Yeah. Give me your opinion on him. What do you think about the guy?
Well, the connection was, last week we did the thing on. Was it last week we did the thing on Todd White?
Right, Todd White.
So, Kenneth Copeland is kind of where Todd White learned his stuff.
So he's from the same tradition then?
I wouldn't say same tradition. Todd White teaches a little different than Copeland does, but Copeland was kind of Todd White's mentor, if you will. Okay. One of them. Todd White's main mentor was a different guy, which I've listened to him as well. Dan Moeller. So, but anyways, I don't agree with Kenneth Copeland's teaching on like he'll be talking about like this video is joy unspeakable. It's creepy to me. And then
you talk about the laughing, the guys that are laughing and carrying on.
It's just creepy.
Yeah.
And then what I really have a problem with is his main teaching on riches and having multiple airplanes, multiple watches that could pay my rent.
Yeah.
And, I get it. God is going to reward us, but not where we have to take advantage of people to get there.
Right.
And I see Copeland as taking advantage of millions of people to get there. Instead of just giving his teaching and then God saying, you're doing a good job, here's your reward.
Mm-hmm.
That's my own personal opinion on it.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I am going to try to do the impossible.
And try not to F it up?
Yes. Did I even do the intro tonight?
Which one? The lapping?
The welcome to faith, fiction, and folklore, or as we like to call it.
Yes. You did an intro.
Dude,
Yes.
dieting stinks. I can't even remember what planet I'm on. Anyway,
What are you dieting for?
My vanity.
Or sanity.
Or sanity, yeah. So anyway,
The Bible says don't be vain.
well, I'll try not to be. Let's put it that way.
Somewhere.
Let's put it that way.
I don't know where it's at.
Okay, so there's a couple things that we need to deal with. All right, first of all, we've got the doctrinal issues of Kenneth Copeland, okay? So we've got to address what his claims are and what the basic ideology is. And so we need to start there. And I'm not exactly sure how to frame this, but I think the best thing to do is I'm going to give a brief synopsis, as brief as I can, about the history of Kenneth Copeland, where he comes from and all of that. And then we're going to talk about the doctrine itself. Now,
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we should flip that. Maybe because the doctrine itself thing, it's like, spoiler, he's wrong. It's a goofy ideology. So that's not a shock to anybody. And it's not really going to take very long to refute. It's really, at the risk of sounding incredibly arrogant, it's really pretty straightforward.
Plus, I sent you that video on another channel taking a deep dive on it.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, Trevor. My windows are uneven, and I am too OCD to let that go.
Hold on, where's it at? I will tell you which one it is if my laptop will load for
There
it.
we go. Much prettier. I need help. Anyway, so, okay, let's start off with reading the Bible verse. This is, I guess, one of the standard go-tos for this prosperity gospel thing. So the idea is, you're, how would you describe the prosperity gospel succinctly? Because first of all, we need to say that anybody who is a Presbyterian that a Baptist doesn't like seems to be associated with the prosperity gospel. So it's one of those terms that just gets thrown around that doesn't have a whole lot of context. Like people accuse Joyce Meyer of being prosperity gospel. She's not prosperity gospel. I don't care what those people say. No, she is not. And that is nonsense.
Short pulled up with her in it. It's 1 minute.
Yeah, go right ahead. But, this is a woman who talks about... Yeah, you can send it. This is a woman who talks about forgiveness and getting your crap together. That's not typical prosperity gospel, all right? So she's not one of these prosperity gospel preachers. All right, so you've sent that in the chat. Dad, blame it. I'll have to wait to pull that up. So anyway, yeah, Joyce Meyer's not prosperity gospel. I don't know what she is. She doesn't even know what prosperity gospel is. So it's like it is basically a derogatory term towards Pentecostals. I don't know if it's actually a specific ideology. Now, there are people who believe in the prosperity gospel as it is articulated by these guys that don't like Pentecostals. And that is where Kenneth Copeland comes in. So the basic idea, the cartoonish version of prosperity gospel, you might say, that everybody understands to be such, is you pray, your faith is kind of like this ambiguous superpower, and prayer is, you're not appealing to the Almighty and His sovereign will. It's like an incantation. If you pray with enough faith, you'll eventually get what you want. That's the basic
Move that
idea.
mountain with that mustard seed,
Exactly.
and you'll get paid with jets and watches.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, God, sometimes gives us the things that we want. And I would even say that God wants us to have nice things. I'm not going to say that God is wanting you to suffer all the time. I mean, there will be periods of suffering and there will be periods of like good times. Like, there are ebbs and flows. There's a season for everything under the sun. So,
Or in the Bible.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, God wants you to have good things, but you're going to have bad times too, and that's not a reflection on your faith. And having a bunch of super duper extra super faith is not going to fix that. So there's no this concept this concept of believing super duper hard to get what you want. You're not going to get this reference, and nobody's going to get this reference, but I'll get the reference, and I'm vain enough. That's all I care about. So there's this old cartoon with Santa Claus, and the idea
Here
is
comes Santa Claus.
Yeah,
Santa Claus.
The idea is that if you believe super duper enough, he can, in the scene, it's Santa in the scene of this movie. I'm thinking it's Santa's belief that keeps the reindeer airborne. And I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's magic, man.
Well, that's exactly what this kind of faith is.
Do
magic.
you believe in magic?
Yeah.
From your heart.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know why. Maybe Santa Claus is being shot with mortar shells or something. I don't know. But his faith starts to waver, or the magic starts to run out, or some bull crap happens. And there's this stupid scene in this cartoon where Santa's like Chuck pulling on the reins, going, I believe. And he's trying to keep the reindeer in the air. So that's the prosperity gospel. You're trying to keep the reindeer from collapsing while you scream, I believe, over and over again. But this is one of the verses that they refer to. That's probably a very uncharitable framing of it. But again, I say that the people who actually believe this version of the prosperity gospel, it's probably not as many people as the accusation, as people say, like Baptists and stuff say. It's not...
Millions and millions.
Well, it's kind of like the word heresy. I mean, everything in the dog is a heresy today. It's just one of those stupid derogatory terms that has lost its meaning because it gets bannered about so much.
Heresy.
But there was a time when it meant something, and Kenneth Copeland is among the people that actually believe in this stuff. So, this is one of the verses they use to defend the position. And Jesus answering saith unto them, have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. And when ye stand praying, forgive if ye have aught against any, that your Father, which is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses. Now, I am actually pulling this refutation from Mike Winger, and I think it's a pretty good one. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but it's a pretty good point. So basically, according to Mike Winger, what you have to understand is, in the Jewish culture, everything was about praying towards the temple. There was a separation between you and God, and you had to pray towards the temple. You had to pray in the direction of the temple. And there was this idea that you needed the temple in order for God to hear your prayers. And I think this is mentioned in Lamentations. There's some allusion to it, but I don't remember exactly what it was. So when Christ is saying all of this, what he's basically saying is that you have direct access to God. And what you're essentially looking at is hyperbole. It's, he's using an extreme example to emphasize the point that we can now pray to God directly. There is no middleman. There is no gatekeeper. There is no temple. There is no curtain between the holiest of holies. Through Christ, you have direct access to God. That's kind of the context here. So it's not literally saying that you can ask. Jess is like, yeah, you did an intro. Thank you. I was worried because I can't even remember what I'm saying 2 seconds earlier. So yes. So basically, the idea is that you have direct access to God, And that's really it. Obviously, praying whatever you want, praying for whatever and then expecting to get it, don't exchange vanity for sanity. LOL. That's funny. Thank you. I'll try not to. I am trying to fight through brain fog right now. But anyway, so
brain fog is not a thing.
It is a thing. Oh my gosh.
Even though I have it every day.
Yeah. Okay, so where was I? Let me think. Yeah, so we have direct access to God. Obviously, God not answering your prayer is not a reflection of your faith, because Christ asked for his cup to be removed from him, and God did not answer that prayer. So did Christ not have faith? Obviously not. And this scripture is also the same book where Christ makes that request, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he knew what was going to happen, and he really did not want to go through that. I mean, who would?
Exactly.
It says he was beaten beyond what any man ever was before, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't recognize him.
Yeah, exactly. And he did not want to go. He did not want to go through that. And so you have to balance asking whatever you want with your will, not mine. And this has been the pretty standard Christian understanding of prayer for forever. It's not horribly complicated. And there's also this goofy presupposition for my own take on this. This idea that faith is some kind of superpower is just dumb. Like, faith is persuasion. Like, there's no believing stuff super duper hard. Like, that's not a thing. There's not some like Freudian definition. It's like, do you believe versus super duper believe and all this. Like, you're either persuaded of something or you're not. Now, we have doubt and we have things where we like wrestle, but faith is a choice to, you know, act as if you believe a certain thing. Not that faith is connected to works. I'm not saying that, but you know, you believe and you form your life as best you can around that belief. That's really it. Like, there's no closing your eyes and willing yourself to believe more or anything like that.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the day, thank you. But because at the end of the day, God is the one who does all the work.
Hey, we're live.
Sweet. Yes, we are.
My
live.
phone just let me know.
Oh, good. Way to be Johnny on the spot, phone.
What, we've been live for what, 20 minutes?
Yeah, 18 minutes we've been live. Good job, phone. You're a real Johnny on the spot.
A little behind there.
Yeah. So Kenneth Copeland is wrong, and it's a very obvious error. Yeah, the Almighty's going to do what he wants to do. Like prayer is not an enchantment. You can't manipulate God like a demon. God is sovereign, and he is going to do what he wants to do, period. You can make your requests, and he will decide whether he wants to honor that request. He might expect you to make the request because you actually talking to him is part of having a relationship with him. But at the end of the day, he's the one that's going to make the decision, and you can't manipulate that. There's no believing super duper hard enough. It's a yes or no, and that's it. So, Trevor, you got any thoughts? Because I'm just rambling now.
I'm a rambling man. Do you want to react to that video I sent you? The Mike. Not that one. Wait. Yeah, Mike Stories is the creator. There it is. And it's talking about, he does a deep dive kind of on Kenneth Copeland. It's very interesting.
Well, before we do that, I am going to actually go through a brief history of Kenneth Copeland, because I wanted to do something. I wanted to start out, I guess, after wrestling with it back and forth. I think now that we've actually made it I think we've made a pretty simplistic but thorough case, or like a simplistic but solid case for why his whole ideology is nonsense. But we need to go through this guy's history a little bit, because there is another side to this coin. And as much as I disagree with Kenneth Copeland, as much as I don't like his ideology, I don't think people dislike him because of his ideology. I think there is I'll tease it this way, and it's a somewhat uncharitable way to put it, but I think people are
Jealous?
Yeah. I think they're jealous of his money. And we'll get into that here in a minute. Jessica Lambert says, in my opinion, Joyce Meyer is more like a spiritual motivational speaker. That's fine. You could think like I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but she's not prosperity gospel. Like, prosperity gospel is like this equivocation with faith and manipulating the Almighty through like believing super duper hard enough. Like, Joyce Meyer teaches about a lot of stuff. Now, she might believe things that are prosperity gospel, but that's like almost none of what she talks about.
She freaks me out too.
Well, she preaches mostly about forgiveness and self-discipline, which people don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's why they give her
subject.
crap. Yeah, it's like, hey, you need to forgive people when they like royally mess you over. Like most of her sermons,
I don't need to forgive anybody. They need to forgive me.
Yeah. It's like, well, they didn't say they're sorry. Like it's that kind of thing. So, and she really hammers that, and people don't like that she hammers that. And I think that's a lot of why people go after her. I don't consider her a prosperity preacher, and I think using that to describe her is just a derogatory. It's a disparagement. Like that's not what she teaches. Like, she may have taught that in one or two sermons in the past or something when she was hanging out with Joel Osteen or something, but that's not like the bulk of her ministry.
Joel Osteen.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure
we should probably do a video on him too.
We'll have to eventually, but for now, we'll stay. Let's go through the brief history of Kenneth Copeland here. So, okay, so here's the story, very briefly. No dates or anything, just the bullet points. And I got my source for this is Anomaly Documentaries. So if you want to watch him or them, feel free to do so. It's a YouTube channel, Anomaly Documentaries. So basically, he had a car crash, was spared, believed the Almighty spared him. He was influenced by Kenneth Hagin. He took courses at Oral Roberts University, which is where I graduated.
Pause there.
Yes.
Kenneth Hagin is the guy who was laughing.
Yes, yeah.
Across from Kenneth Copeland.
Right.
In that very first video.
Yeah, so it makes sense for him to be there because, he was I guess Kenneth Copeland's mentor, you might say.
Yeah.
So he went to Oral Roberts University, became Oral Roberts' pilot. He began a newsletter, then he began to preach on the radio. This led to a television series. He went to a lot of conventions. They bought then they bought some property, and there was oil and gas on it. I'm sure that helped with their finances quite a bit. Then they started getting criticism, and it grew in the 90s. He was also in some Christian movies, I guess. And then in 2006, he was considered the most successful televangelist. And then, okay, well, first of all, the first major controversy that this guy went through is in 2003, Kenneth Copeland entered into a partnership with Affordable Homes Limited. Now, this was a low-income housing group. And he offered to finance this group, and then he backed out, left the other guy in the hole. And so he got a lot of crud for this. Around the same time, I believe he spent $20 million on his first private jet. So this is when he really started to get into trouble. I think it was like a 1-2 punch. He abandons the low-income housing project thing, and I don't know the details as to why. I just know that he walked away from it. And then very shortly afterwards, he gets the jet. And so people get mad at him. Right?
When you're a jet, you're a jet.
Yeah, so this would have been around 2003. So, He also was accused of sending a threatening letter to the contractor for affordable homes after the contractor confronted him. The contractor said he owed about $45,000. Other companies have claimed that Kenneth Copeland had messed them over. Then there was a notorious incident where a cancer patient was giving him a lot of money, and the cancer patient died. And what was horrible about that situation is, apparently, from what I understand, this person believed that the reason they were going to die, or that the reason they weren't healed, is because they didn't give enough. And I guess that's the important component. Can't believe I missed this.
He actually Kenneth Copeland talks about that in his video, or the video that I shared.
Yeah, I can't believe I missed this. But one of the big things about prosperity gospel is that there is this idea that you have to give in order to receive.
Yeah.
Which is just, again, dumb, because if you're giving to get, that kind of defeats the purpose of giving.
Yeah.
Like,
and another,
you're still being selfish. So, like, what's the point? But anyway.
Yeah. Another person that influenced Kenneth Copeland a lot was Rodney Howard Brown.
Okay.
I don't know if you know who that is.
No, fill me in. Who is Rodney Howard Brown?
Have you heard of the Toronto Blessing?
Go for it. Explain to me what that is, because I did not find anything like that in my limited research.
I don't remember the date, but in the 90s, there was a big get-together of all these high-end evangelists like this. And Rodney Howard Brown was kind of the main guy who did it all. And they called it the Toronto Blessing. And it was these prosperity teachers all getting together at this huge event. And it's called the Toronto Blessing. And anyways, he was also heavily influenced by Rodney Howard Brown. And I have a video on the Toronto Blessing, which we could do another time, maybe next week or something.
In what way was he influenced? Like, you say the word influenced, is it?
Like, they were like real good friends.
Okay, so they're just friends. Okay.
So they were like, they would cast ideas at each other,
Yeah.
and preach the same thing, basically.
Gotcha. All right, sweet. So there's this connection with Rodney Howard Brown. Now, so the last thing I remember, so after this cancer patient thing, which was awful, because this person gave and gave and gave. It was a dude? Okay.
Yeah.
They gave and gave and gave and gave and gave, and they died. And they still believe they hadn't given enough, which, I mean, that's horrible, right? Like, that's awful.
Yeah.
Like, that's a terrible doctrine that I think would even produce that kind of scenario.
He gave him a Bentley. The vehicle. A Bentley.
Who gave who
This
what?
cancer patient gave Kenneth Copeland a Bentley car.
Really?
And like a week or so later, he died. He passed away.
Wow. See, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
But he was one of his highest givers in the church.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awful. And then the last thing that really doesn't shine very well on his character is somebody got access to his flight logs. And apparently this guy, when he had his jet, or when he uses his jets, he's also taking them to, Maui, Fiji, Honolulu, and other places. So
all his vacations.
He was taking it on vacations as well as his mission trips. So people were getting upset about that. So that is all bad. I'm not going to try to justify any of that. Well, I don't know how I feel about how much I care about the vacation thing. Everything else is awful.
Well, another controversy is he was on a show, and this is in that video I shared with you as well. He was on a show. I don't remember which show. Talking about this jet jet thing.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't want to get on the plane with all those demons.
Oh, yeah, that's an Inside Edition thing. That was taken out of context. But we'll get to that here in a minute. That's part of my bullet point.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in the video, that little snip of interview.
I heard it. I didn't. It's more wonderful editing by our charming and totally reliable mainstream media. But anyway,
No, not the questioning with Inside
no,
Edition.
I heard the statement.
Okay.
I knew what he meant. They blew it up and said he was talking about people. He wasn't talking about people, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I know what he meant.
Yeah, yeah. People who were serious and listening to him knew what he meant, but the media was like, "You said people are demons," because they're middle schoolers. So anyway,
They're mid.
yeah. So now here's where the conversation gets a little dicey, and this is kind of my big complaint with all this, because as much as I don't like Kenneth Copeland's teachings or ideology, I don't think the other side is in the right either. Basically, just to tease out where this is going, everybody sucks in this situation. So here's the deal. So around the time of all this with the cancer patient happens, CBS comes out with a report, and then a senator named Chuck Grassley starts criticizing Copeland, and wants Copeland to submit his financial records. And Copeland was like, no, because he doesn't have to. And, the thing is that this is the same reason why Trump didn't send his financial records, because these turkeys will go in there and look for any single solitary micromanaging little thing to try to throw the person in jail. They did this with Ken Hovind. This is the typical IRS crap. Yeah, this is like that typical IRS crap. Is they want to look for crimes, and whether there's crimes or not, they're going to find a crime. Like when some twit senator starts asking you for your financial records, the translation should be, show me the tax record, I'll show you the crime. You're going to go to jail because they will find something whether you did something or not. Like, they do this to everybody. They were going to do it to Trump, but he held out. And then the second they got a hold of his tax records, what did they do? Why, they sit there and said those Stormy Daniels payments were some sort of political fraud and gave him 34 counts of fraud. This is why people don't send their financial records. You don't give these people that crap because they're going to weaponize it. And so I totally understand why Kenneth Copeland would not give these lying liars who lie his tax records.
Yeah, and then news people on TikToks turned it into, instead of fraud, they turned it into the R word.
Yeah. Because they don't care about whether you actually did something wrong. It's weaponized lawfare.
Yeah.
That's all it's been. It was no different back in 2003 than it is now, or 2006, whenever this picked up. Doesn't matter. It's the same crap. So I'm not going to get mad at Kenneth Copeland for refusing to divulge his financial records, because these people will do everything under the sun to throw him in jail because he's a Christian and they want to embarrass Christians. That's really it. So I don't blame him. And they don't have the right to do it anyway. Like, period. So I was on his side with the whole financial record thing, and Chuck Grassley was in the wrong. So anyway. So Huckabee defended. Is that Mr. Cody? Oh my goodness, I thought he wasn't going to make it. Hang on a minute. Our windows are all messed up. All right.
How was dinner?
How was dinner?
Welcome
You're
to Faith Fiction
here.
and Folklore.
What's up, guys?
Look at you. I thought we'd never see you again.
Yeah.
Well, he made it. Let's go.
Dinner was great.
Dinner was great. Awesome.
We had hamburger sliders. Did them on the old Blackstone.
Mm.
Yep. It was great.
Sweet.
You got any bacon?
No.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, Cody, because I had all this research that I'd done on hell just for you, and I thought we were going to go back and forth tonight. So I was super excited, so I'm glad you're here.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I forgot about the research, but we'll see what
It's
we can do.
okay. I'm a nerd. Right now we're talking about Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I'm screwing up my notes. I had everything all set up nice and neat. Now I just look like an idiot. So I'm going to have to go through here. All right. So
You're not an idiot.
So, okay, Mr. Cody, have you listened to the podcast? Do you know where we're at, or do we need to catch you up?
Restart.
The whole episode. We're restarting the whole episode. No.
Yeah, I've been listening for the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
Go back to the laughing video you missed.
I've been listening the last 10 minutes.
Okay, great. So, we don't need to see the laughing video again.
Oh, come on. There's more laughing.
Yeah, it's 15 minutes of laughing.
Yeah, skip to the girl in the red hair.
Hey, look, more laughing.
These people all on drugs?
Right there.
Did they fill the room with laughing gas or what?
What?
It's joy unspeakable. He was teaching on joy unspeakable.
Oh,
is
so
she
they're all
doing?
ghost hitters?
So just
Sounds
laugh.
like a beat puppy dog.
Oh, it gets worse.
I'm laughing.
Oh, it gets worse.
This is horrible.
Why is this going on? You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of those like communist horror stories where everybody like just keeps clapping and refuses to sit down because the first person to sit down gets shot. Like,
Don't do that.
when Stalin was like, applaud for me. And then everybody just kind of applauded until they all passed out.
Instead of applauding, they're laughing.
Yeah, it's like a horrible, horrible inverse game of musical chairs. So anyway, nobody wants to quit laughing because they're afraid. And is oxygen deprived.
Yeah, they've been laughing that much.
What are we looking for, Trevor?
She gets louder.
Oh, she's going to get louder. So we're waiting for the redhead to laugh louder. Okay.
Unless you just don't want to.
Huh?
Unless you just don't want to.
I'm ambivalent. It just sounds like these people are dying. But Cody, do you want to keep listening to the laughter? No, I don't
Nope.
either. Okay. All right. Well, that just got awkward. Anyway, right, I was defending this man. Okay, so yes.
Oh, yes, you were in the middle of that.
The Senate wanted his financial records, and he was like, "No," and I'm like, I don't blame him. Senate can just shut up. I wouldn't give him my financial records either. They can come and get them. So anyway, and wouldn't you know it, after he refuses to give them these financial records, that's when all these financial stories come out. That's when the media blitz really starts, is when he's like doggedly refusing to...
People started digging.
Yeah, people started digging in the IR. The Fed paid the New York Times and all these people to go after him is what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, do we have proof of that? No, but do we really need it? So anyway.
The proof is in the pudding.
Well, the proof is that they do this to everybody they don't like. It's the same crap over and over again. So, let's see. So the board is well paid. There was a tax exemption on the jet. They were mad about that. Oh, poor Uncle Sam didn't get their taxes for the jet.
When you're a jet, you're a jet.
They continued to probe in 2010. So this crap started either like in 2003 or 2006. And it kept going until after 2010. And I'm like, yeah, they really just wanted to throw this guy in jail like they'd done to other televangelists. That's why they were doing that, but he wasn't going to play. So they did the PR campaign. And this is when it got really stupid. So in 2013, there was a measles outbreak, and they blamed the lack of vaccines. Because
Of course.
because Pentecostals don't believe in the vaccines. So it's like, they try to make it sound like it's something unique about him. It's like, no, there are denominations that don't believe in vaccines. That's not uncommon. That's not news. So anyway, yeah, and who knows if these guys actually got measles because there was a lack of vaccines or not. I kind of doubt it, but anyway.
Yeah.
And then they got mad at somebody out of that church because they said vitamin D helped. I don't know if it does or it doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The Fed was just being mad.
Same arguments that were going around during COVID.
Exactly. In fact, let's fast forward to COVID, shall we? So when COVID rolls around, Kenneth Copeland, and bear in mind, I don't like his doctrine. I don't agree with his doctrine, and I think his doctrine is terrible and produces horrible fruits, and what happened to that cancer patient was egregious, and I have no patience for that. But despite my lack of, I guess, respect for his ideas, when COVID started, he was one of the few people that actually kept his services open. Okay? Every last one of these turkeys that closed their churches because of COVID, they're in the wrong. They should repent of it. It was evil and stupid, and the fact that they did that probably prolonged the bull crap the government was trying to pull 2 years longer than it needed to be. And he was one of the few guys, despite his faults, he was one of the few guys that actually kept his church open.
Yeah.
So, that's a big tick in his favor as far as I'm concerned.
So he's like a libertarian.
Yeah, well, I mean, the anti-vax guys are, of course, not going to go with the COVID stuff, and they shouldn't be expected to. So, And in the end, he was right, and all these people that are complaining about the prosperity gospel and all this crap are wrong. So, nobody's perfect. So, anyway, yeah, he did a bunch of stupid stuff, like he did the COVID-19 thing. He tried to blow it away, which was so stupid.
I'm going to blow on you. And
You guys talk about it. I'm actually going to try to find that. That is worth sharing.
Hey, it might have worked, man. You never know.
It did not work. This was back in 2020.
It's all the placebo effect, right?
The placebo took like 2 years to kick in, though.
That's what Joe Dispenza says.
Oh, gosh. Can't even remember his name. Kenneth Copeland blows on COVID.
He's a blower? He's a blower?
Blows on COVID.
This is precious. Anyway.
Is it coming up?
Yeah.
Nice.
COVID-19!
COVID-19!
Here we go. Ouch.
Burn!
It's so awkward because nobody knows what else to do. It's like, okay, burn COVID-19, burn. But anyway, as silly as that is, he's one of the only guys that kept his services going. So that's a point in his favor. I don't care if he's flamboyant.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. I think he's like a libertarian con man.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and then he held a conference against Abbott's orders during the pandemic. Good for him.
What's an Abbott order?
That's Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas. Back when they were like, oh, you can't have anything open because this flu might kill you. The Pentecostal prosperity people were like, yeah, shut up, we're going. And Abbott was like, okay. And you know what? He should have, yeah. I mean, he should have. So there was that. And then he was criticized for living in a mansion and not paying taxes on it. And I'm like, oh, boo-hoo. Oh, boo-hoo. Poor Uncle Sam didn't get their taxes.
Did he buy the house under his 501c3?
Yeah, basically.
That's hilarious.
There's a particular law in Texas that like counts as like a minister's abode or something. So
That's
there's like a
hilarious,
deduction
dude.
for it. And I'm not mad. It doesn't bother me. I'm like, oh, really? So what's worse? Kenneth Copeland getting to keep his money and live in a mansion, or his tax dollars going to pay for tranny Sesame Street in Sudan? So
No doubt.
I'm not sad. Anyway, so yeah, he gets a mansion, doesn't have to pay taxes on it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then in 2024, he had a ruptured appendix, but he's fine now, I guess. And so that is the abbreviated history of Kenneth Copeland. Oh, and then there was that Inside Edition thing where he bought another jet, and everybody was mad at him for buying the jet, and they tried to say he was like, what'd you say, Trevor? It was like he was calling people demons.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
there was an interview with him on a different channel, not this channel, where he was asked about why he flies private, and he said to the interviewer that he didn't like getting in a plane with all those demons in that tunnel with all the demons. And so
That makes sense.
yeah, a lot of people
especially
took
if
that
you
out of
believe demons
context.
are germs. So anyway, but
If germs or worms,
germs.
Worms are germs.
Didn't they used to believe that demons were like airborne bacteria?
They can be.
I think that was like an old Jewish belief, but I
think
might
that
be
was
wrong about that.
That was what they tried to pull with COVID.
That the demons how does that tie to COVID?
was-
I'm sorry.
That there was demons in the air. I mean, I don't,
I
you know. You're like, oh, this spreads through the air like a demon, you know.
even though
Well,
the
there are-
sun
idea that they
kills
wanted to get across.
99% of it. Yeah.
There are demons in the air, but they're not COVID-19.
I don't think they're really in the air, man. They're
They're
inside
in-
of us.
They're in the air and under every rock.
You know, when you say that, Cody, I just think there's like this little worm sitting in my brain with like a control panel going, go ahead and eat that extra donut. It'll be fine.
They're not in your
Well,
brain, they're
I
in
mean-
your gut.
Yeah, they're your gut.
So there's a control panel in the gut.
Yeah,
Eat the candy. Eat the candy.
yeah. I think of it like when I want a cookie,
Uh-huh.
it's like that's not actually me wanting a cookie. It's the parasite in my stomach that wants some sugar, you know. So he's telling my brain that I want a cookie.
I'm sorry. Now I've got like this like Osmosis Joan character of a worm
Right.
in my head.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
oh my gosh. That's funny. Anyway, so all right, that's Kenneth Copeland. I guess we could watch the Inside Edition thing. To be in his defense though, if a reporter had been asking me questions like this, I probably would have made similar faces just to run her off. But we'll give this a whirl.
How are you, sir? We'd just like to ask you about why you don't want to fly commercial. Why have you said that you won't fly commercial? You said that it's like getting into a tube with a bunch of demons. Why do you think that?
No, listen to me just a second. Not the people. The main reason is because of the need. If I flew commercial, I'd have to stop 65% of what I'm doing. That's really the main.
Isn't it true that you want to fly commercial so that you can fly in luxury? How much money?
Okay, come on. I would have been ticked off if somebody asked me that. It's like, so
Well,
what
I
you're
mean-
saying is you're a rich, spoiled prick? That's what she might as well said. It's like, so what you're saying is you're a spoiled piece of trash. Can you say you're trash on camera? I need a sound bite.
Yeah, it sounds like whenever I mean I don't know the video that the reporter's referring to, but if it's I
sent
guess
it
if
to
that
Gary.
was he like kind of in an emotional state whenever they
No,
you got that
he
out
was
of him
on.
whenever
I
he
think,
said that?
I think he was on Jesse Duplantis, and he was explaining why he'd bought this other jet. And he basically said that he can get more places faster and be more efficient if he traveled on a private jet as opposed to commercially. And I don't remember when exactly the whole demon thing came up, but it was like
Yeah.
he was mainly referring to the hassle of airport travel. Basically, he wasn't like calling people demons or whatever.
I don't know. He could have been. I mean, you could literally see the demon in that guy's eyes.
In his
I mean,
eyes,
So yeah, Kenneth Copeland.
I don't know if that's a demon or just getting mad at a snarky reporter.
I don't know, dude.
I don't know, man. If
was
somebody
pretty wild.
asked me questions like that, I wouldn't have been looking too pretty at her. I'd be like, "You little sorry such and such."
you would have manifested.
I'm just
I
saying
wouldn't
that
have been Christian.
The killer in me is the killer in you. You know.
The killer in me is the killer in you.
Yeah,
So are we
that's-
talking that we want to kill a reporter? Like, what are we talking about
No,
here?
no, no. Oh my god.
Those are song lyrics.
Never mind.
I'm so confused. Don't do that. That's a bad thing. Just make angry faces at them and run them off.
Yeah, I don't know,
Did you
man.
pay-
This guy is gnarly looking.
His doctrine is stupid. That's
Yeah,
what it boils down
he's
to. His doctrine
prosperity
is
stuff,
stupid.
like-
It's
He's not a
prosperity.
doctor, though.
His doctrine is dumb, but let's not pretend like everybody else is being noble here.
I just think he's a con man.
He probably is. Like, he probably is. He comes from the tradition of Oral Roberts. We still don't know where the car went. And, you know, it's that same group. So, yeah. I mean, he probably is a con man. But let's not pretend like everybody's wanting his financial records out of the goodness of their hearts. This is basically the Crips and the Bloods fighting over like a skyscraper or something.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care. This is why I get mad at the whole money thing. It's like people are so incensed about his money and stuff. It's like, what, you're mad that the Fed didn't get his tax records? Like the Fed didn't get their taxes? Oh no. Like, why should I care about that? And frankly, why should I care that he has a jet and he has a mansion? Why should I be mad that other people have nice things?
You shouldn't.
Yeah, like, I don't care. And look,
Both parties are at fault here.
yeah. And, you know, look, the people have the right to give the money however they want. The only criterion is he honest about where the money's going? If he tells his church, guys, I need another plane, and they go, okay, and they give him another plane,
That's on them.
that's on them. That's on them. It's fine. They made that decision. If they believe if they give him money for the plane, God is going to bless them. I don't agree with that. I think that's dumb. But you have the right to believe that. You know, you have the right to believe that, and you have the right to lose your money.
Yep.
So congratulations. Welcome to America. But, you know, am I supposed to sit there and get upset that a preacher has a plane?
No.
I guess as much as I disagree with this doctrine, I always get kind of ticked off at people who complain about these guys so much because it's like, it just sounds like jealousy to me. You know, people like in other denominations will whine about how ineffective their denominations are compared to the prosperity gospel people and the word of faith people and all these guys. And I'm like, yeah, the thing about that money is rising tide, you know, raises all ships or whatever. Like, yes, they're blowing money on vacations and stuff, but because they put so much emphasis on money, their ministries are larger and more effective. That's why they got on TBN when you guys didn't. And that's why they're more effective than you guys are. And don't conflate indignation about freaking jets with like starving rocker syndrome. You know, you're being jealous because you don't have as big a ministry. Like, I don't know why these guys are big. Like, maybe it's fraud, maybe it's the Almighty's will. I don't know, but you're sitting there getting mad about it without doing anything and like trying to, you know, create some sort of financial infrastructure yourself isn't going to help anything. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of it's motivated by jealousy. Even though I think their doctrine is stupid. So,
Yeah. I would agree with you.
all right, I guess we'll keep watching this then. And then we'll wrap it up.
For Tyler Perry's Gulfstream jet, for example?
Well, for example, that's really none of your business, but
Isn't it the business of your donors?
listen, I paid. You kind of caught me off guard here, okay?
Certainly. Well, if you'd like to come out here, I'd like to give you a chance to catch your breath and have a conversation. We don't want to catch you off guard.
I love Inside Edition. You got to get this now. Hey, you listening to me? My wife thinks Inside Edition is, oh, yeah. Now, thank you, Lord. Help me. Let me pray this thing.
Well, let me just ask you a really simple question. A lot of people think it's unbecoming for a preacher to live a life of luxury and to fly around in private jets. What's your response to that?
Very simple. It takes a lot of money to do what we do. We have brought over 100, let's see, the latest figures just came out, 122 million people to the Lord Jesus Christ. Let me give you another example. Last May, I was scheduled for Lagos, Nigeria. That's a long ways. I had a week off, and I was scheduled for Peru. And I prayed about it, and I thought, I'm not missing that dedication in Jerusalem. Without
The eyes are very off-putting. They are very off-putting.
the airplane that we have that I bought from Tyler Perry, and I didn't pay anywhere. And Tyler's one of the greatest guys. He made that airplane so cheap for me. I couldn't.
And I will say, he's like showing every conceivable sign of anxiety imaginable. Like, he is scared to answer the question. Like, very scared. So
He had to go into storyteller mode.
yeah, he did. That is not a pretty face. I did not do that on purpose at all. Oh my goodness. Wow. All right.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
Do we want to keep going, or we got the point
Sure,
here?
yeah, let's see some more demon faces.
Okay.
I told you, man.
Well, my question then, okay, all right, but I want to get to the demons because people are very concerned about that comment.
Give me a chance here.
Illuminati
Inside
confirmed.
Edition. I love you, Al.
Illuminati confirmed.
Synchronicities are off the charts.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that.
And here's what happened. We flew in 21 days, 70 hours, 40,000 miles, touched 5 continents, and preached face to face personally with 125,000 people.
Do you ever use your private jets to go visit your vacation homes, for example?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Again, getting back to the comment, you said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did.
Ooh.
We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
Can you explain what you meant by that term then? Just explain, because it's really simple. You said you didn't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. What did you mean?
Well, let me ask you.
Do you think that people that fly commercial are demons?
If you give me a chance to talk, sweetheart, I'll explain this to you. But it's a biblical thing.
terrible.
It's a spiritual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with people.
She is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd have blood be shooting out of my eyes if I had to talk to somebody like that.
People, I love people. Jesus loves people. But people get pushed in alcohol. Do you think that's a good place for a preacher to be and prepare to go preach to a lot of people? When somebody in there is dragging some woman down an aisle, it made me so mad to see that on television. I wanted to punch the guy out myself. I can't be doing that while I'm getting ready to preach.
So you just don't like to be around the sinful people or the hurtful people. Is that what you're saying?
Not the people, baby. Not the people.
That was a very poorly worded answer. Like, oh, they're just so sinful. I don't want to be around it. I'm like, yeah, that's not a good way to go. That was not a good. That was not a good response, guy.
Back during the days that we couldn't do anything else, we had to travel commercial. When I went to Oral Roberts University, I flew for Oral Roberts. I'm a commercial pilot. So I spent a lot of time in airplanes.
And you have how many planes?
We have the Gulfstream, and we still have our Citation 10. And then we have a little small airplane. But both those are the two ones that we use, and we use them all the time. And other people use them too. We have other ministries that use these. In the book of Ephesians, oh God, I love this.
That was a weird cut. We're getting it pretty unedited there for a minute. He must have said something they didn't like.
Wrestle not with people, but with principalities and powers, unseen things. rulers of the darkness of this world. Talking about the devil. He's a very real devil, just the same as Jesus is a very real Lord. And I spent a lot of time on airlines. But the main thing that happened was not, that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was I could no longer do what I called to do and be on the airlines. Besides that, I need my clothes when I get there.
And you have some fancy clothes. I mean,
do.
for a pastor, you are living a life of luxury.
Yes, I
You've
am.
got great homes. You've got great planes.
I do.
You drive in limos,
I'm a
and
very wealthy man.
you're a very wealthy man.
Yes.
Yeah. And some
And
people
I
would
might-
say
I
that
might
is it appreciate?
May I add something to that? My wealth doesn't come from offerings alone.
Because you sell things, books and DVDs.
Yes. And I have a lot of natural gas on our property. Didn't know that, did you, babe?
Now I do.
Yeah, you do. Isn't that wonderful?
Well, I guess. It's wonderful for you.
Back when
Can you not hear the jealousy? That's what's driving me nuts about this. I'm like, that's wonderful for you. I wish I had natural gas.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it must be nice. I mean, she's just seething with it, and of course, you don't hear about the the oil and stuff. I didn't know about that until I did research on this.
Yep.
It's just petty. It's just petty jealousy. Like at the end of the day, we don't know how much of it comes from gas. We don't know how much of it comes from offerings. We don't know how much of it comes from books. We don't know, and he's not required to tell us.
Right.
But it's just the Fed wanting that sweet tithe offering taxes. They want to tithe their taxes. They want to tax your tithes. That's the one I'm looking for. Watch it. That's what all this is going to end up being. If they ever actually do get a hold of his financial records, they're going to be like, this is just so much money. We gotta get it from him. Of course, if they're taxing him, they're also taxing you. But anyway. So I need that zero comment. Anyway.
I might add another thing too.
Actually, if you guys don't mind, you two
I
talk
mind.
amongst yourselves. I want to look up this actual Jesse Duplantis, the thing that he actually said on Jesse Duplantis' show.
It's on
See
the
what he
other
actually
video
meant.
I sent you.
All right, which one is that? Is it this one? It's finally over.
This should end his career. That one.
I remember seeing it. It was on Duplantis. At least I thought. And there was Todd. There's Todd White, everybody. All right. Boy, I think this is it. This might have been it.
This
yeah.
dope-filled world,
Right.
and get in a long
Yeah, that's
tube
it.
with a bunch of demons.
Do you really believe?
Okay, well, I'm going to actually look up that whole quote because that got cherry picked. All right, hang on. So, Kenneth Copeland, get on plane with demons line. I don't know, something like that. No, I don't care about the Inside Edition thing. Show me the original quote. Goodness.
Gracious me almighty.
Goodness gracious. Boy, Inside Edition got a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah, they did. It's a very popular video.
Yeah, where's his quote, though? You know what? I don't need to keep looking. Here we go. Is this it? Oh, please be it. Maybe this is it. We'll check. Well, I can't tell because the watermark's over the other watermark. Did you find it?
On that video, it's at 17:45,
Welcome to the Believers.
40.
1745. Okay. I tried to find it. Did you say 1745?
40, 1740.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, you're right. All right, we'll start at 1736. There's his plane.
Which he purchased using ministry funds. His fleet is housed at Kenneth Copeland Airport, a private
I'll be right
airstrip
back.
located on his 33-acre ministry compound in Texas. In a now famous Inside Edition interview, Copeland responded to
33
controversy
acres.
regarding what he said about flying
What?
33 acres. That's hilarious.
Is that another Illuminati confirmed?
Yeah.
on commercial
He
airplanes.
knows.
This
He gets it.
dope-filled
He gets it, huh?
He gets it. Oh man.
world and get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
Do you really believe that?
No, it isn't. It just cherry picked it. Just cherry picked it again.
Cherry pick.
Cherry picking. You know what? It doesn't matter. It sounds like, my. Since he said the word dope, I'm assuming he means all those sinning sinners that sin when he said demons. That's the dope thing was a clue. So I guess we can run with that. Unless somebody else in the chat can find that video, because I can't find it.
The longer we watch these videos, the more I kind of like Kenneth Copeland.
Well, his doctrine is stupid. I don't know if I would like him. I like everybody else less. So
Yeah. It's like he's full of demons, but he knows it. And he like he gets it, you know?
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna end this section. With my
What was
quote.
that?
This is my quote that I think sums up this entire episode.
Okay.
With all that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is the end of part 1. We're gonna move on to part 2. So if you're on the live stream, stay tuned. If you're watching this after the fact, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Later.
I love that quote. Just one.
Hey, Billy.
Just
But
one
if
more
you're on
time.
live, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, if you're live, we're not going anywhere. Just one more time, because this makes me happy. I love that movie. I love
I don't
that
even know
movie.
what it is.
It's the producers. It's Mel Brooks, the producers.
Oh, okay.
Great movie. Okay. All right. Trevor, I can't remember what we were going to do next. Were we going to do Wes Huff next or Virginia Roberts next?
Let's do Virginia.
All right. So I'll leave this one in because I just saw this a couple days ago. So
Because the Wes Huff one is kind of more of just us reacting.
okay. All right.
I asked Callie about this, and she knew all about it, but I have no idea what it is.
Virginia Roberts. Oh, I'm so mad. Makes me so mad.
Virginia Roberts. I don't know what it is. Yeah. I think you should do this part. You want to get on here? Come on.
Uh-oh. We're going to have a guest speaker, too?
Are we gonna get a guest speaker tonight? No.
She won't want no.
Do you want nothing to do with it? Okay. All right. Well, let's just kick into it. So, welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Try F Podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. All right. So, I'm pretty mad about this. So, Virginia Roberts, we're talking about her supposedly unaliving herself, which is totally not what happened. So,
Like
for those
4 gunshot bullets to the back of the head. Or
yeah,
not that
it was
big?
very Clinton-esque. So,
Yeah.
Very sketchy.
and I'm ticked off because this was kind of like a slow-moving train wreck. Like, this was incredibly obvious. Everybody knew this was going to happen. She knew it was going to happen. She posted that she was not suicidal because she knew it was going to happen. And then the dad blamed Fed, was like, it's a suicide. So, yeah. Anyway, for those who don't know, Virginia Roberts was one of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse victims. And, yeah, she was willing to testify. She was the one that basically pinned Prince Andrew as being, connected him with Epstein. And she was on the run for forever, finally came out and, did the brave thing and told people about all this. And she gets unalived because people apparently were redacting information still and people aren't in jail yet. So, she She gets to pay for everybody else's tardiness.
Yep.
Anyway, so let's just start with this, I'm sure, totally honest article by, it looks like NBC. Yeah, NBC News. Reliable sources. All right, so Virginia Giuff, which is Virginia Roberts, one of the most prominent survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse, has died by being unalived. No, she did not. Her family claims this, or said this on Friday. She died in near Gabby, Australia, where she had been living for several years. There's one particular detail I'm curious to see if they'll actually say it. I don't think they're going to, but we'll see. I'm just going to say Roberts. Roberts was one of the earliest and loudest voices for the criminal charges against Epstein and his enablers. Other Epstein abuse survivors later credited her with giving them the courage to speak out. She also provided critical information to law enforcement that contributed to the investigation into the latter conviction of Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as other investigations by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, which is the group that was holding on to all of the Epstein files, and Pam Bondi and that group had to go raid to get the evidence. So the people that supposedly had all like the flight logs and all of Epstein's papers and documents, that was them. They wouldn't disclose it to the Trump administration. The dude who ran that office got fired. And apparently Comey's daughter is still in charge of this stupid thing, though. But yeah, they had to basically raid that office to get all this information, which they're apparently right now, supposedly, redacting victims' names and stuff like that, and supposedly they're trying to, like, set up actual prosecutions for people, which is supposedly why it's taking so long. But we'll see if it ever actually comes out at all. And the longer this goes on, the more dubious I am about that. But anyway.
Yeah.
It is with utterly broken hearts that we announce that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia, her family said in a statement to NBC News. She lost her life to suicide after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. Virginia was a fierce warrior in the fight against sexual abuse and sex trafficking. She was the light that lifted so many survivors, the statement said. In the end, the toll of abuse is so heavy that it became unbearable for Virginia to handle its weight. You can already tell a family member did not write that. Like, that is a cliche line that some stupid bureaucrat wrote. There's no way a family member wrote that.
Absolutely.
Raised primarily in Florida, Roberts had a troubled childhood. She said she was abused by a family friend, triggering a downward spiral that led her to living on the streets for a time as a teenager. She was attempting to rebuild her life when she met Maxwell's Epstein's close confidant. Maxwell groomed her to being abused by Epstein, and that abuse continued from 1999 to 2002, according to Roberts. Roberts also alleged that Epstein trafficked her to his powerful friends, including Prince Andrew and French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel. There's no alleged about it. He, countersued, and I think he was kicked out of the royal family. That's a done deal. So I don't think alleged is applicable there. There wasn't an official court case, but I think he was disowned in some fashion by the Queen when all this came out, if I remember correctly. And he settled out of court. I believe that's how that went. Somebody can check me if I'm wrong. Epstein, a wealthy financier, died in a New York jail in 2009 while he was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. Maxwell, a former British socialite, was found guilty on 5 counts of sex trafficking in 2021. 5. They had that island for years, but she was only charged with 5. I'm sure that was the 5 that didn't have money.
Probably.
Yeah, or the 5 that couldn't afford the judge. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, she and her role in recruiting young girls to be abused by Epstein. Roberts filed a federal lawsuit against Andrew in 2021, alleging that he abused her when she was 17. Andrew, who stepped back from his duties as an active royal as controversy related to Epstein swirled around him, agreed to settle the case for an undisclosed amount in 2022. He has denied having sex with her. Brunel, who headed several modeling agencies, was charged with sexual harassment and the R word at least one minor in December of 2020. He denied wrongdoing and died by suicide in his jail cell in February 2022. Several months prior, Roberts testified against Brunel in a Paris courtroom in June 2021. So that's another detail that should be noted. She was still testifying up until very recently. So there's that. I'm sure that... Anyway, in an interview after her day-long closed-door testimony, Roberts said she appeared in court to be a voice for the victims and to make sure Brunel was brought to justice. I wanted Brunel to know that he no longer has the power over me, Roberts said, that I am a grown woman now and I've decided to hold him accountable for what he did to me and to so many others. Roberts moved to Australia with her husband before Epstein's 2019 arrest. The couple has 3 children. Her brother, Danny Wilson, told NBC News she pushed so hard to snuff the evil out of the world. Her biggest push was, if I don't do this, nobody's going to do it, he said, regarding her advocacy. She was in real physical pain, suffered from renal failure, but I think that the mental pain was worse. How much longer has this got? Yeah, there we go. And the Epstein story received renewed attention during the most recent presidential election, and in February, Attorney General Pam Bondi released a collection of Epstein-related files to right-wing media figures and then to the public that were already released because that was the Fed's sanitized version of things. Though the release was widely panned for containing information that was almost entirely previously public, the lead-up to its release, including concerns about the disclosure of sensitive or personal identifying information about victims, have been the source of distress and anxiety for victims in recent months. Multiple victims told NBC News. No mention of the raid of the Southern District of New York office, mind you. No mention of that at all. Robert's lawyer, Sigrid Macaulay, described her as a dear friend and an incredible champion for her other victims. Those who were close to Roberts said they remembered her as a fighter. Virginia was one of the most extraordinary human beings I've ever had the honor to know, her representative, Deanie von Mueffling, said. And Macaulay said, her courage pushed me to fight harder, and her strength was awe-inspiring. In an interview for a Dateline NBC special on Epstein that aired before authorities charged Maxwell and Brunel, Roberts urged law enforcement to act. Take us serious, she said. We matter. So, why did I decide to read that whole thing? Because there is one giant detail that those charming people at NBC News forgot to admit. The fact that she was hit by a bus. So this is what happened literally 2 weeks ago. She posts this on social media saying that a bus came up behind her, rear-ended her in the middle of nowhere. Like, this is the middle of nowhere, Australia. There was no reason for a bus to be there, and we know nothing about the driver. They said she was going to die of kidney failure in about 4 days, and then 2 weeks later, she's committed suicide. No mention of the car accident at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Bull crap. She did not commit suicide. She was murdered. Period. Like, I'm just... It's sad because Benny Johnson and other people have been all over this. It's like, we got to do something. They're going to go after her. They're going to go after her. It's been like a slow-moving car wreck, and now she's dead.
Yeah.
And people knew. Like, this was obvious. Everybody saw this coming. This wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they got her. They knew she was being attacked. Nobody did anything, and now she's dead.
So who's still cleaning up Epstein shit?
Probably the Clintons and Bill Gates and like all these people with money, because apparently Pam Bondi actually does have the records and actually does have the names, and they're just redacting victims and building like actual prosecutions for people now. And that kind of makes me angry because it means at the beginning of all this, neither she nor anybody else actually believed this was a big deal. And it turns out the Southern District of New York was holding on to apparently terabytes of data. They were just sitting on it, and now everybody's like, oh crap, this is actually a thing. Yeah. And so now they're trying to take it serious, and mum's been the word this entire time. Because these people are still alive and still moving, and still killing people, apparently.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, I'm just freaking furious about this. Like, this just... Again, because everybody saw it coming, and nobody did anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's awful. And this is a reporter from a few years ago. This was a leaked footage from Project Veritas, back when it was still ran by James O'Keefe. And basically, ABC convinced her to come out into the open. And I just want people to listen to her and how she views this situation and what Virginia Roberts got for all her trouble. This was, yeah, anyway.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
She didn't get her story. How tragic. And what did Roberts get out of all this? Somebody hit her with a bus, and they called it a suicide. Nobody protected her. Hiding for 12 years. She does the right thing, stands up for all these victims, and dies, and nobody questions the fact that it's a suicide. There's nobody except like Benny Johnson. And NBC News doesn't even mention that she was in a car wreck literally 2 weeks ago. Doesn't even mention it. It's just, I'm waiting for the promises made, promises kept. I'm waiting for a little justice. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of her, Prince Andrew. We already saw that. There's another article. And I wanted to end with another person who came out over a similar situation years ago, because pedophilia is a blackmail racket that the feds use. And they've been at this for a long time. And this is another person who came out, made similar claims. And her name's Kathy O'Brien. And she said, basically, the Epstein thing is another version of what she went through. And so I thought we would listen to her for a few minutes and just see if we notice any similarities. So we'll start with this and then call it good.
That we cannot be misled into believing that it's just one particular group of people or another. We can't even say that this is Democrats or Republicans. No. This has nothing to do with party lines. What it has to do with is a New World Order agenda. When I was under mind control, before I was rescued and my mind and my memory restored, I was totally robotic. I had no ability to think for myself. I had no ability to question or to reason. I could only do exactly what I was told to do. One thing that I was told to do was to attend a White House cocktail party. This was during the Reagan-Bush administration while Ronald Reagan was president. It was on one occasion in particular that I heard Ronald Reagan talking with then Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, who was also involved in this New World Order effort. And he said at that time that he believed the only way to world peace is through mind control of the masses. This is terrifying in proportion, especially when, having experienced mind control, I know that there is no peace of mind under mind control. Without free thought, there's no free will. Without God-given free will, there's no spiritual expression. And I wonder what kind of a so-called world peace can we have where people have no peace of mind, where they have no spiritual expression, when they're not even in touch with their own identity? Or it's very frightening in proportion when we consider the ramifications of what all mind control entails and how anyone can justify a robotic society under the so-called world peace guise, which is actually the New World Order world dominance effort.
In around 1970, Ronald Reagan, then the governor of California, introduced to the legislature a request for a bond hearing because he wanted to introduce mind control into the California state prison system and as well as the mental health system. Well, the type of mind control that Ronald Reagan was wanting to introduce was a combination of what is now known as chemical lobotomies, in addition to trauma-based conditioning, very much in the Pavlovian sense. Ronald Reagan almost lost his bid for governor because the people rejected this idea so vehemently. But in fact, according to Freedom of Information Act information that has been released as a result of the MK Ultra being exposed in 1977, these abuses and this mind control was in fact introduced in the Vacaville prison in particular. There's voluminous information about the role that the CIA played in really harming a great number of people in that facility. Now, there's also powerful evidence that is surfaced with regards to the MK Ultra being introduced in the mental health system, particularly within the state of California under Ronald Reagan's jurisdiction and certainly his blessings. Now, Ronald Reagan is not necessarily a target of our expose. He just happens to be one of Kathy's abusers that she has written about and that we have been able to get documented extensively.
It was my experience that Ronald Reagan took orders directly from George Bush. George Bush was one of the highest up that I'm aware of, if not the highest up that I was ever exposed to during the course of my White House Pentagon level mind control victimization. George Bush began with the United Nations. He went on to head our CIA. And then by everything that I witnessed and experienced, it was George Bush who was in control of our country through 3 administrations because Ronald Reagan answers to George Bush. Then George Bush was in office himself. And after that, Bill Clinton went into office. And I heard Bill Clinton and George Bush once discussing how when the American populace became disillusioned with Republicans in control of our country, bringing us into the New World Order, that Bill Clinton, as a Democrat, would be put into office. And it was also my experience to have witnessed Bill Clinton answering to George Bush. So we certainly aren't blaming everything on George Bush. There's a lot of other players that are named in our book, Transformation of America. But it's very important that people understand who's at the top of this effort so that they know exactly what the problem really is.
Okay.
Dang.
Yeah. See, back then it was called MK Ultra. Now it's called, or not MK Ultra. It's called the New World Order. Now it's called the Great Reset. So basically, if you don't recognize all those terms, it really doesn't matter because they just relabeled all that crap anyway.
No.
So, you know, traumatize kids so they can eventually become hot honeypots if they even live that long, and use those kids to blackmail politicians.
Yeah.
Been going on for forever.
Yep.
And people have known, and now another person is dead because nobody will accept this crap is actually happening.
It's all conspiracy.
Well, it's people not... I mean, it's conspiracy on the bad guys' part, obviously, but it's people not wanting to admit that things are this bad. And that there are actors... Like, it's
or
not
worse.
Yeah, it's not incompetence that's ruling the world. It's literal malice. It's literal evil.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and just, yeah, I mean, everybody knew. It's just, this has been going on for so long, and everybody knew what was going to happen to that girl the second she got hit by that bus.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything. Nobody did anything. We just pretended like it wasn't a problem, and now she's dead.
If I would have known about the bus and that she existed, and I lived close, I might have tried to do something.
There's people who could have and didn't, though, and it's because nobody wants to admit what's going on. A lot of this is just nobody wanting to admit how serious this is. But that goes back to the whole Pam Bondi thing. It's like, why did she put that stupid Phase 1 version of the Epstein files out? Why did she go around going, promises made, promises kept? Because people weren't taking this crap seriously. Nobody's been taking this seriously, and it's been going on for forever. And nothing's going to improve until people start taking this seriously, and more people are going to die. So it just sucks. So I'm just mad, and I wanted to do something on this because Benny Johnson came out with a video, I think it was last night, and I was like, this is terrible, and I felt like I should talk about it because I don't know how many people are going to. So
right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'd certainly never heard of it, but
yeah,
I don't hear about a lot of things.
Yeah, it's just depressing. Final pleasant note, Kathy O'Brien was on Alex Jones recently, and she was talking about how this COVID crap that happened over the last few years is very similar to the mind control bull crap she went through, even down to wearing the masks, funnily enough.
Yeah.
Dehumanize people.
Hide your spirit.
And keeps oxygen from your brain.
Indeed.
So, anyway. All right. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is the end of episode 2. We're going to move on to episode 3. So if you're on the live stream, stay with us. If you're watching this after the fact, we'll see you next time.
Later.
All right. That was a very dour episode, but I guess we'll move on to the next one. So, somebody else want to lead us in?
Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or the Triumph podcast, where we try not to F it up. And today we're going to talk about Wes Huff crushing rapid-fire questions about Jesus. And the guy asking him the questions is Piers Morgan. He kind of plays the devil's advocate, as he says in the video. Today we got Gary and Cody. How you guys doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Pretty good.
Surviving, man. Surviving.
Anyways, we're just going to basically react to this and fluff Wes Huff's feathers for a minute.
I probably won't.
You probably won't.
You're going to go after Wes Huff? Okay.
I go after everybody.
All right, well, here we go. Let's see how this rolls.
Here we go.
Jesus Christ actually existed, actually walked this world, did predict his own death and resurrection. And then if you could have a camera running on the tomb in and around 33 AD, that an actual Jesus would have walked out on the third day after his crucifixion and burial.
Now, again, to play devil's advocate,
Wes Huff just went on Piers Morgan, and Pierce in this section of the video is playing devil's advocate, quite literally.
We're reacting to a reaction.
Allows for this
to a reaction of a reaction of a reaction.
Conversation, because basically Pierce asks all the questions that come up on this YouTube channel, in the comment section, etc., that people seem to think have never been asked before. Luckily, they have been, and luckily, Wes provides some good answers here. I'm really looking forward to sharing those answers with you all, and then I'll kind of step in periodically to round out some of the rough edges as well. So let's get into it.
What's interesting about your perspective on this, from your history and your studying, is that you believe a lot of the New Testament is unarguably factually true.
I do, yeah, and I think that that's demonstrable from the actual evidence that we can look at.
Is it indisputable to you that Jesus Christ existed, for example?
Oh, definitely so. I think we can say pretty unequivocally that a character, a first-century Jewish itinerant rabbi by the name of Jesus of Nazareth, did walk the dusty streets of first-century Roman-occupied Judea. I think that even the most skeptical scholars will grant that if we know very little about Jesus, we know that he did exist and that he was crucified in and around the beginning of the first century under the overseeing of the governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate.
I mean, even a super, super basic Google search of what percentage of scholars believe Jesus existed will show you virtually all scholars, including historians, Bible scholars, and those studying ancient history, agree that Jesus existed as a historical figure. The Christ myth.
Trevor, do we have like the actual interview? Like, we should be able to pull it up pretty easy.
I did not look it up. No.
I'll look it up. You guys react. You two talk about it. Do you think Christ existed? Obviously, I do. I'm the traditionalist.
Yeah, I think Christ existed. 100%. I mean, it's not.
I find that documentary with that. Oh, I forgot his name again, Gary.
What's up?
Oh, Ron Wyatt?
Oh, Ron Wyatt. I think that documentary is quite compelling to the, existence of Jesus.
Yeah, that was a good one.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially that thing with the microscope, man, and the light in the blood.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Intense.
Yeah, man. I am furious that not more people watched that episode, because that's like one of the coolest things we've talked about, and very few people watched it. So I never do this, but look for the Ron Wyatt episode on our channel. You need to watch it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Maybe we can go over it again just to see if it sticks again.
Yeah, maybe try it again.
React to our video on it.
React to our reaction of our
react
reaction.
to our own reaction.
All right. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead here. Jordan Peterson's on there. I don't know why he's there.
Oh, you got to clean your room.
And make 5-year plans.
5 years.
Fold your laundry.
I love Freedom Tunes. So good. Anyway.
I didn't sleep for 72 hours or whatever. What do you say?
7 days.
I don't remember.
Is it 7 days?
I don't remember.
It was a long time.
40 days and 40 nights.
I didn't sleep for 7 days. And how is that possible? Well, I'll tell you how it's possible, Joe. You go down, you lay down, and you'll stare at the ceiling for 8 hours, and then you get up.
I do that.
Yeah.
All right. Okie dokie. That was good. I
Thank you.
wasn't paying attention, but that was good. Okay.
What was?
You guys' impressions.
I have
one
that was
line.
not-
It was all
my
terrible, but I thought
Jordan
it was
Peterson impression is the worst.
It's okay. We all
The
suck.
worst.
We pretend like we're good at impressions. We're not.
You're okay at Jordan Peterson. I can't do it at all.
Oh, thank you.
We're all impressionable in some way.
It's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm thoroughly okay. Here we go.
Is it indisputable to you that Jesus Christ existed, for example?
Oh, definitely so. I think we can say pretty unequivocally that a character, a first century Jewish itinerant rabbi by the name of Jesus of Nazareth, did walk the dusty streets of first century Roman occupied Judea. I think that even the most skeptical scholars will grant that if we know very little about Jesus, we know that he did exist and that he was crucified in and around the beginning of the first century under the overseeing of the governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate.
I want to play you a clip from one of my friends, Jordan Peterson, who's very skeptical about all this. And he said this.
Profound religious account is bottomless. And the biblical representations are like that. There's no limit to the amount of investigation they can bear, not least because the text itself is deeply cross-referenced. So there's an innumerable number of paths through it. It's like a chessboard. And so it's inexhaustible in its interpretive space.
That's true.
He's not saying anything.
What do you say to that, Wesley?
This is what I heard. You could interpret the Bible in a lot of different ways. Now,
yeah,
like playing chess.
It's weird because it's like, well, I mean, it is cross-referenced in that, it's an anthology and you have to look up certain, historical clues, like in terms of terminology and stuff, to understand what's being like. For example, in the Gospels, you have to look up like stuff about the Jewish prophecy in Jeremiah 31 to kind of understand the kingdom of heaven and understand what, you know, the term Messiah meant, and the suffering servant. Like, you have to look up different things to understand what's going on in the New Testament. So in that sense, it is like a bibliography where you have to cross-reference it. I don't know why you would say that means its interpretive value is infinite, like a chessboard, though. I'm like, I agreed with the first part, but I'm like, I don't know if I agree with the second part.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I agree.
I don't know. I don't know. I
You can
guess I
interpret
don't.
things based on your worldview, you know, like.
Yes, but presumably only one interpretation is right. So I don't know why.
Right.
It's like saying it's infinite in its interpretive space. Well, it's like, well, yeah, because people get crap wrong. I mean, I can interpret Huck Finn a million different ways and get it wrong every time. In that sense, its interpretive space is infinite. I don't know what you're actually pointing out, though. Like, if I wanted to say, you know, Huck Finn is an allegory for the future communist dictatorship of Canada, I mean, I could say that. It doesn't mean I'm right. So I don't know what he means.
Okay.
All right, maybe I'm not making sense.
I concede.
You concede? Were we arguing? I wasn't aware that we were arguing. But
I don't know.
I concur.
I concur. Doctor, do you concur? Yes. Okay.
No, son, I concede.
Yeah, it's interesting, Pierce. I really appreciate
I
Jordan
concurred
Peterson and
with
kind
your
of
concede.
the angle that he reveals on the biblical text and some of the kind of allegorical perspectives that it reveals. I don't deny that in the least. In fact, I think I've found Peterson very helpful in his Jungian approach in drawing some of those things out, whereas maybe prior to finding Jordan Peterson, I might have dismissed them in a way.
Okay, so he's going off Carl Jung's archetypes. Okay, I think I'm tracking.
Who's Carl Jung?
Oh
he
my
was
gosh.
a psychologist back in the
Trevor.
Yeah, he's after Freud, and he basically talked about symbolism and dreams and things of that sort. It's a very simplistic. I got through like half of a book of his, and that was it. So
yeah,
too many details.
Cool.
Huh? What'd you say, Cody?
The archetype stuff is cool.
Yeah, no, it's very handy for storytelling and stuff. So
and his shadow work. I mean that it's helpful for somebody that's struggling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know Peterson's a fan of him. He talks about him all the time in his lectures. So
yeah.
That I think was probably too soon to do so. However, I think two things can be true at the exact same time, Pierce. I think we can grant that there is meaning that goes beyond the text, but not deny that there were actual events that took place that the people like Jordan Peterson talked.
Sorry, say that again.
I said, he said it could mean two things.
Yeah, okay.
As long as it's not the purple.
It's the purple, man. Yeah.
We had it. I'll tell you about it after the show, but we had another delightful commenter.
Oh, nice.
Talk about from the biblical narratives, individuals at the core, like Jesus Christ, actually existed, actually walked this world, did predict his own death and resurrection. And then if you could have a camera running on the tomb in and around 33 AD, that an actual Jesus would have walked out on the third day after his crucifixion and burial.
See, that is the crux of this.
He would have walked
out
with the camera.
Whether Jesus of Nazareth was resurrected really goes to the absolute essence and heart of Christianity, because obviously if he was, then that is a miracle, and then everyone that believes in Christianity and what it all stands for and Jesus and everything would feel validated by the fact, well, how else do you explain it? So it's at the crux of it. From the text of the New Testament, then, where is the actual hard evidence for you as an historian that actually happened?
Yeah, I think we do, Pierce, have a historical question in terms of we have an actual character who we can demonstrate that lived, and then we have that same character being demonstrated in multiple independent and cross-reference sources, chief of which we call the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But just because those are religious texts now doesn't necessarily negate that they are historical texts. These were independent written sources that come from the time frame. If we want to know about someone from the ancient world or history in general, we go to the earliest sources, preferably eyewitness sources. And I think that's what we have within the Gospels. So we have a character who lived, who died, and then a character who is said by an early Jesus community to have been resurrected. And the accounts of that are not just kind of scant. They're not seeing Jesus off from afar as some sort of apparition or something like that. What we have is the case of instances of the early Jesus community saying they walked with him, they talked with him, they ate with him. And this happened over the course of, as Luke in his combination, the Gospel of Luke and Acts, says, over the course of 40 days. This wasn't a short event. And so there were as many as, Paul says, up to 500 witnesses who took part in this event before his ultimate, resurrecting, going to the ascension of the right hand of the Father. And so it's...
All right, thoughts. Is that enough evidence for you guys? Do you find that compelling?
Yes.
Cody?
His proof is the Gospels?
Yes.
I mean...
And the epistles of Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to have more than just that.
We have Joe Cease.
That's why I find that Ron Wyatt documentary so compelling.
Yeah. We have Josephus as well. There's other references to Christ existing at the time. So but it is an interesting argument though, because people don't think about the fact that yes, the Gospels are religious, but they are also legitimate historical documents from the time. We can prove that they weren't written in 400 AD. The names are consistent with the time frame, and the fact that they had qualifiers was a practice at the time. Wes Huff brought that up in a previous video we looked at, talking about how the names from the region match and all the little details match about the Gospels, so we can infer that it's an actual historical document. I think that's fair. So, all right, we'll move on. Let's see. Is there another... Trevor, is there a particular question that you were wanting us to address?
No, that was it.
That was the main one?
That was the main thing.
Okay, well, we can't go through the whole hour, so
no.
We've got about 13 minutes left before I know we've at least covered 30. So let's see. I'm going to scroll through here, and I'm actually going to try to pick out arguments. So, okay, Pierce is going to try to rebut the eyewitness arguments. So let's see what his counter is, and let's see how Wes Huff counters, and then we'll give our own reactions to it. All right, so there we go. Come on.
Now, again, to play devil's advocate, the argument against it goes, look, all these witnesses were likely to have been pretty primitive, mostly illiterate people. Eyewitness testimony notoriously is unreliable. It's the least credible evidence in a courtroom these days, for example. And since the historical method doesn't deal with miracles, it's ridiculous, people say, to base any history on it. And even Matthew's gospel tells us when Jesus appeared in front of his 11 disciples, some of them doubted, to which people say, well, if even not all his disciples believe this, why on earth should we?
Yeah, I think there are a few things going on there in terms of the historical method and how...
Yeah.
Do you guys have doubts every once in a while?
Oh, yeah.
About what?
Just anything in general.
Yes.
Because I know I do. It's difficult not to doubt.
I think I went through my doubting phase, or at least the worst of it, back in the teens when the new atheists were popular. I watched their arguments pretty carefully and went through my existential crisis, as it were, back then. And I've listened to these apologetic type arguments for years. I mean, it's... First of all, it's just, in my opinion, to respond to what he said so far, this idea that just because people didn't have electricity, they were stupid. I just reject that outright. It's oh, well, how smart could they possibly be? They couldn't even turn on a light bulb. It's well, yeah, well, you can't make a light bulb. Like a monkey can turn on a light bulb. Try making one. That doesn't mean that everybody around you was stupid. Like we stand on the shoulders of giants. That doesn't mean we're like infinitely smarter than the people that came before us. So the idea that just because people back then were quote unquote primitive, they were stupid, I just reject out of hand.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's pretty arrogant. And that's the first problem. Second problem is there's certain details that the Gospels give that are very counterintuitive to the culture at the time, which indicates that it was true. So, for example, the first people to have seen Christ risen were women. Now, if you were wanting to make a fake claim in that world, you would not have women being the first ones to see the resurrected Christ, because women were considered flighty and stupid back then. So, you know, in their minds, that would not have been compelling evidence. But if it's actually what happened, that's what they wrote. You know, that's what they would have wrote. So the fact that the witnesses were women is compelling. You know, things of that sort.
Like when Mary thought Jesus was the gardener or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anybody have any thoughts to add?
I mean, I think there's a lot of gardeners named Jesus, so I wouldn't.
Racist. So, that's not as funny as it was the first time, but that's okay. So, all right. Trevor, you got anything to add?
I shared a video with you about racism.
Some other time, perhaps.
It's a
maybe
short,
later.
It's a joke. It's just one of a comedian telling a joke.
Okay, maybe we'll end the show on that. Okay. Sounds good.
Jesse Lee Peterson says racism doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
I agree.
We're going to move on.
How we actually evaluate things.
Somebody's a little sensitive.
Yeah, I blame the
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. That's so sensitive. I blame the dieting. So anyway.
Only have witness testimony. You know, you do have something that's very different than a courtroom in a modern legal setting, right? Even something like hearsay. Well, all of ancient history in one sense is hearsay, but that doesn't apply when we apply it to the historiographical method. We need to use the same standards that when we would look at something like, say, the biographies of Tiberius with Velleius Paterculus, Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassiodeo. When we have multiple instances of reporting on someone's life, we look at both the things that they agree on and the things maybe where they have a differentiation in detail, and then we try to the best of our ability explain some of the different instances that are going on. Now, I would say, you know, to the accusation, well, these are just ancient, illiterate people. That's what C.S. Lewis referred to as chronological snobbery. You know, just because people are ancient neither means they're stupid nor that.
I like the way he put that better. That's pretty funny.
I love C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going on. And what we have in terms of this event is really early on after Jesus's death, we have an explanation of what if the resurrection didn't take place, what we would expect. The 11 disciples are hiding in the upper room. They're scared. They're aware of other messianic movements in the ancient world. Individuals like Simon Bar Giora, who claimed to be the Messiah when his movement was squashed. So when he died, when he died, his movement was squashed. And so I think we have to look at, okay, what explains these 11 scared disciples then going on to not just proclaim that Jesus did rise from the dead, but actually went to the point of risking their lives in persecution. And some of them did die for that proclamation. And so I think it's not outside of the realm of possibility for history to actually be able to evaluate this evidence and say, okay, we have these questions. How then do we explain something like an empty tomb, or even Jesus's disciples go back and the account of the Pentecost happens in Jerusalem. So Jesus's disciples go back to the scene of the crime in the town where people would have saw him crucified, and now they're proclaiming he's resurrected. Well, why would you go back to the place where people could have actually known what actually happened, especially if you're trying to be disingenuous or dishonest? And then that's where it happens. And you know, Stephen is the first martyr. That also happens in Jerusalem. That would have been a warning shot across the bow for the disciples if they wanted to continue on proclaiming these things. They would have realized that this is controversial, both in Jewish circles and in Gentile circles, to be proclaiming these things, to be declaring Jesus as Lord. You know, one of the earliest confessions of Christianity was Jesus is Lord, when the society was saying Caesar is Lord. And so there were risks politically, there were risks religiously, and yet the disciples go on to proclaim these things, even to the detriment of their own lives.
What do you say when people say, well, look...
All right, so that's the third counter argument that I usually hear. It's the intellectual or the chronological snobbery is the first one. The second one that I've heard is the women in the tomb, and then the third one is the fact that the movement persisted even though there was political risks. What do you guys think about the third one? Do you find the third one compelling?
I do.
Okay. Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, why would you?
Yeah,
why would you go up against the political society when you know you're going to get mistreated or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
There are parts of the New Testament that allude to Jesus as now been the Son of God, and then there are parts where he appears to be God himself. How do you counter that argument that there's an inconsistency there?
Yeah, so Son of God is a title that is reserved for not differentiating Jesus from God. You know, in John's gospel in particular, we have instance where Jesus is referring to himself as the Son of God in a way that actually has the Jews picking up stones to stone him. And when he says, you know, what are these good works are you going to stone me for? They say not for your good works, but because you call Jesus your Father, making yourself equal with God. And, you know, Jesus then, he doesn't say, oh, no, you've misunderstood me. You know, my Muslim friends like to point out that there are multiple sons of God throughout the Bible. David was referred to as a son of God. But what's unique is that despite there being, sometimes my Muslim friends like to say sons by the tons, despite that reality, that Jesus is not claiming to be a son of God, he's claiming to be the Son of God in a unique way that not only puts him on equal footing with the Father, but in this monotheistic context of ancient Judaism, actually ascribes to himself honors, attributes, names, and deeds that only God himself has the right to hold. And so the Jews throughout the New Testament, throughout Jesus's ministry and his goings on, they aren't confused by the things he says. You know, when he, at the beginning of Mark's gospel, when he forgives the sins of a person, their response is, who can forgive sins but God alone? And they're exactly right. Only God can forgive our sins. And so Jesus is, in his kind of answer, saying, you know, I'm doing this so that you know that the Son of Man can forgive sins. It's not a correction. That's a reframing in saying, yes, you're right. Only God can forgive sins. That's what I'm doing. Who does that make me?
I've seen Ricky Gervais on various...
All right, so, Cody, we've had back and forth on this multiple times. I don't know if we need to revisit it because we've, argued so many times about the Trinity. There is an interesting video on Standing for Truth. There's a debate about the Trinity I'm currently watching. I might have to send you the link later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I think that's pretty good. I am going to pick one more question, and then we'll react to it, and then we're going to call this one good.
Okay.
Sound good? All right.
Yep.
Okay.
What's your one more question?
I got to find it. Let's see. The Advan Man, Mythology Drift, Discovery of Garden Beneath, When Were the Gospels Written, Wesley Explains the Rise of Islam, Asmaga, Wesley on the Quran's Historical Inaccuracies. Let's see. Let's do Mythology Drift.
How excited you get, Wesley, when there's a new revelation which seems to support historical evidence of stuff in the Bible? And I'll give an example. There's been a new discovery at the site of Jesus' resurrection that appears to corroborate what is in the New Testament, an archaeological discovery, which is...
Oh, wait, I'm too far back. Hang on, sorry. My bad.
You could argue that Jesus Christ was the first and greatest celebrity that the world had ever seen. I know lots of really big celebrities, and I know a lot of stuff about them, and then I read stuff about them which I know to be untrue. In other words, a mythology builds up around incredibly famous people. over time that often bears no relation to reality. And often they don't really care if they're still alive, because it all adds to the general mythology and celebrity status, and why kill a good story if you can possibly avoid it, and so on. When you read the New Testament with an historian's eye, do you see evidence of mythology creeping in where the basic tenets of Jesus of Nazareth and what happened to him and so on may well all be, to your eyes, verifiable historically, but that actually there may be mythology built up around that kind of character, and it's almost impossible to test that?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to this argument in that I think we do see mythological drift for particular people, especially as there is a time gap between, some of the instances that we have in terms of written documentation of these individuals. I think what I would look at as a historian is, when we're looking at the particulars of Jesus's life, there are things that I just don't think you would make up. I mean, even the fact that Jesus comes from the city Nazareth, it's really the boonies, for lack of a better way of putting it, of Israel. People didn't expect Jesus to come from Nazareth. They didn't expect the Messiah to be a traveling itinerant rabbi. They expected in Jesus's day, with the cultural expectation of who the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed one who was predicted by particularly individuals like the prophets in the Old Testament, they expected him to be a conqueror. They expected him to come and to release the nation of Israel from under the oppression of the Romans. They did not expect the Messiah to be murdered by the Romans. And so I think if you're making up stories about him, there are particular details that we find in the New Testament and in the biographies of Jesus's life that really the only true explanation for them, I would contend, is because they actually happened. Even if you read the accounts of the...
So that is an interesting point. When you study Rome, like Ryan Reeves, I think it's Ryan Reeves, he has some good stuff on this. One of the reasons the Romans found Christians repugnant is because they couldn't imagine like God dying, and they thought that was like this ultimate sign of weakness. And they would mock, Christianity for that. So, for example, one of the earliest forms of graffiti found in Rome is a depiction of somebody bowing and worshiping a crucified man with a donkey on his head. And that was supposed to be like the interpretation of Christians. And so the idea that this is some kind of mythology doesn't really work, because the religion itself is structured in such a way that it's not flattering. It wasn't flattering for the Jewish people because they thought Christ was supposed to be a conqueror. It wasn't flattering towards the Romans, because the Romans, thought, what kind of God would die, and they didn't value weakness at all. And so there's nobody who would have found this to be a favorable religion, except for like women, because, there was like prohibitions on sleeping around, and so the women are like, yay, my husband actually gets to come home. So, it wasn't exactly... They did that mythology, if you wanted to even use that term, which I wouldn't like. It's not flattering by their standards. So yeah, I don't think that idea really works. And I don't think it would have worked for a long time. Like, I don't know when those values really shifted, but it would have been hundreds of years after the fact before it started shifting. Also, we have accounts of like Jesus becoming a mythological figure. That's like the Gnostic Gospels. Like in Egypt, Christ is referred to as a magician, in like a cup they found recently, I believe. So like you can see a mythology about him growing that's apart from Christianity anyhow. So and that mythology is more in line with, you might say, the values of their day. There's a lot more spectacle to them. So anyway, anybody have any thoughts?
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single one.
Not a single one. All right. Well, I think we're going to call that good and move on to the last episode for the evening.
Thank you.
Yep. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're part of the live stream, we've got one segment left. If you're watching us after the fact, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you later.
It's later.
Later. All right. Okay, so the last bit is basically a carry through from last week. So it's our conversation about hell. I wanted to like grab some scripture and, basically kind of, I guess, confirm what I was saying previously and kind of show some of the concepts through like scripture and stuff. So, was anybody wanting to say anything about it or had any thoughts about last week in hell and everything like that? I guess before I get into that, we need to actually do the introduction. So, who wants to do the introduction?
Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. We're the Tri-F podcast where we try not to F the podcast up. Today we are continuing our conversation about hell. Gary's going to solidify what his position is on it. Am I getting that right, Gary? How are you tonight?
Yeah, that's good. I'm fantastic, man. You?
Good. I'm doing well. Trevor, how are you?
Yes.
He's yes.
All right. Yeah, so last week there was this poor soul who had asked, why would God torture people in hell for eternity?
Yeah.
And he was basically kind of shot down by the majority of his panel, something to the effect of "have faith, brah." And I didn't think that was fair. So I tried to answer the question. And I was kind of doing it off the fly because my emphasis was kind of being angry at those people for shooting him down like that. So I wanted to provide a little bit of scripture, and I also wanted to do kind of a back and forth because, Cody, I know you kind of had your own unique view about heaven and hell and all of that, and I guess compare and contrast views, as it were, and talk about that for about 30 minutes and call it a night. So
yeah.
Or night at a call.
All right, yeah.
Nope, we're not going to night at a call.
Okay.
All right, so let me see. Let me start off, if I can actually pull up the right. I have so many tabs open. Also, I'm sorry, Trevor, you had a video that you were wanting me to look at.
No.
As well.
I have a question.
A question.
It's a question.
And it was presented in this video.
No.
No? Well, you gave me the video to pull up.
The video explains my question deeper than I can explain my question.
Okay. All right. So, great. All right. Well, how do you guys want to do this? You want me to address the video first, or do you want me to give my case first and then look at the video?
Let's start with your case, and then if my question pertains to anything you're talking about, then I'll ask it.
Okay. I need to just scroll this because I'm like popping tabs. I'm deleting tabs in front of people. I'm sure it's very confusing. Okay.
They like it.
Oh, all right then. Well, let's
see. Right,
see.
chat? I hope you like it.
Don't agree with this, man. Good night. Okay.
Speaking of chat, if you like it, like it.
Subscribe!
Like it.
Subscribe, hit the thumbs up.
Give us money.
No, don't give us any money.
Greedy shills.
I deleted my zero comment, my zero tab, right as you said that. That sucks.
He's zeroing. Just right click and hit reopen, close tab.
I want that money. All right, hang on a minute. I will find this. Here we go. Oh, come on. Here. All right, so here's some verses about hell. They're kind of descriptors that kind of give us a little bit about what hell is in the Bible and how to understand it. So,
how do you understand it?
How do I understand it? Oh, I think the scriptures do a pretty good job. So you start out with Matthew 25:41. Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." That tells us that hell was originally prepared for the devil and his angels. And in 2 Peter, "For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them into chains and gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment," and of course it goes on, but the idea is that, the angels are actually being kept, and that rebelled against God are being kept as prisoners there, and they're waiting the judgment day. So, and then Revelations, this is talking about the lake of fire, which is distinct. We may have to go to 20 because I don't know if it has all of it here. So, Revelation 20:10, "And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever." And if we go to Revelation 20, we get a better picture of this. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosened a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. So this would be like the kingdom that we've talked about before. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part of the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. But they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years were expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went upon the breadth of the earth to compass the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. So after that 1,000 years, the devil is cast into the lake of fire, where the beast and the false prophet were cast. So, and I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which are written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life, whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So I wanted to emphasize this because death and hell are shown as distinct from the lake of fire. This means hell is actually, it's not the final place of judgment. It's like a place in the afterlife. It's distinct from the lake of fire. So that was what I was getting at with all that. I didn't know exactly where it was, so I wound up having to read the whole chapter. Anyway, So Matthew 25:46, there's eternal punishment. So, hell is a place of eternal punishment. And these will go
But at some point, it says after the judgment that hell is thrown into the lake of fire, which...
Yeah. So I guess this would be
it not exist anymore.
Yeah, so I guess the eternal judgment or eternal punishment would be the lake of fire then in Matthew 25:46. That's what I'm saying. Hell is hell is a distinct like temporary realm, like a holding cell.
Right.
Like Mike Winger had a good analogy. He said there's jail and then there's prison. Hell is like jail, and then the lake of fire is like prison. So they're like...
No, because the lake of fire destroys it. There's no punishment. There's no suffering.
That's
within the lake of fire.
That was what that guy in the video last week was arguing. Does God torment those souls for eternity, or does the lake of fire mean annihilation?
Because the lake of fire only exists for after the judgment, and then it goes away too.
No, the lake of fire is after the judgment. Like it's eternal.
Right, but it goes away.
No, hell goes away, but not the lake of fire. They're different. Okay. That's what I'm saying. That's what
the lake of fire always exists?
I don't know if it always exists, but I mean, it's made to destroy hell, death, and the souls that, rebelled of Satan. It's like, you could say...
I think it's allegorical, personally, but I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, it has to go away.
My only point is that hell and the lake and fire are distinct. I tend to think that it is eternal punishment, meaning that they're not going to be destroyed because of the phrase eternal punishment. I don't think it's annihilationism, but some people would make the argument that it is. I'm not really trying to argue for or against annihilation right now. I'm just trying to describe I'm trying to simply point out that there is a difference between hell and the lake of fire. They're two different realms.
Yeah,
that's
I agree with you.
So, yeah, I personally believe it is eternal punishment and not annihilationism. But I'm not. We can debate that if you want, but that wasn't.
We'll read that Revelation verse again. It says it in there, doesn't it? That the lake of fire is.
Let's see. This is Revelation 20.
It destroys.
Doesn't
it destroy? I mean,
let's see.
There's only one definition for the word destroy, right?
Well, fire is emblematic of destruction, so I mean, I think it could be read that way. I don't think it's complete. Like, I wouldn't go as far as calling it a heresy like some people do. So I mean, I think heresy. I think it's a plausible reading. I just don't think it's right. But we'll see. Let's read it again. Starting with Revelation 20:10, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are. So I guess you could argue that since the beast and the false prophet are already there, when the devil is cast into the lake of fire, they weren't destroyed. So I think that would suggest that it is eternal punishment based on that. But that would also suggest that the lake of fire exists simultaneously with hell in some capacity as well. So, do you have another way to read it? Because I'm improving it the same way you are. I'm just looking at it and giving my impression.
And hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Huh. The second death. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think on it.
Yeah, this is one of the more tough issues that people debate about all the time. So,
the second death.
Now, I've always understood the reason it's called the second death. This is just my understanding of it. Is that, again, I haven't checked this part, but from what I understand, in that culture at that time, death did not mean a cessation of organs, like a cessation of body functions. Death didn't mean your heart stopped beating, your brain stopped working. It meant to be cut off from the source of life, right? So flower plucked from the ground, tree plucked, or leaf plucked from a tree. So in life, we die the first time, the moment we sin, because we're cut off from God and physical life. And then the second death is when we are cut off from God for the final time spiritually. So the lake of fire, which I should be getting into with this list of verses I pulled up. The lake of fire is a realm where the glory of God doesn't exist. So yeah, God's glory isn't there. So you're cut off from the source of life for the final time. That's the way I understand it. So don't know if that's right. Don't know if there's a scholar who could disagree with me or not, but that's the way I understand the verse.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to go on, or do you want to finish reading through this again?
Go on.
Okay. So, all right. So we've got 46. Jude 1:6, and the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. So that's kind of affirming what Peter was saying. 2 Thessalonians 1:9. They will. So it's important to note here that what Peter and Jude are talking about, they are talking about hell, where the devil and their angels and his angels are. And then 2 Thessalonians 1:9, because you've got a future tense, is saying where they will go. So they will suffer the punishment of eternal destruction, or at least where maybe this is talking about the believer? I need to look at that. Anyway, so I guess, no, if this is punishment, eternal destruction, then it would have to be lake of fire. Okay, they will suffer the punishment of eternal destruction away from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his might. So that's what I'm talking about. You're cut off from his glory. So God isn't there, basically. Okay. And then this is a descriptor.
I mean, I guess it would make sense. Is it Mark where he's talking about where Jesus is talking to the two people that are possessed by demons, and they why would the demons be scared of Jesus if not? He said it's not our time, right? Why would they be scared that it was their time unless there was suffering involved?
Yeah,
I guess I can.
I would take that to mean like they were scared he was going to cast him into hell.
Sure.
In that prison, which is different from the lake of fire, but that's where the demons would be going.
In my interpretation, they would already be in hell. Like, they're demons. They operate within the realm of hell.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I can't explain how that works from
the
your
realm
model.
of sin. So their next step would be the lake of fire.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that. Like, they're already in hell, so they're afraid Christ is going to cast them into the lake of fire as opposed to hell, by your view.
Which destroys them, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Then we've got, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both body and soul in hell. This is what I was talking about, especially if like there is eternal punishment. How can a soul, and there isn't annihilation, how can a soul be destroyed? You know what I mean? This is what I was talking about last week. I kind of touched on it briefly. If a soul is some kind of identity, I would assume that you would lose. And since you're cut off from God, who is like your source of your understanding of good, your understanding of judgment, your understanding of beauty, all that stuff. Like, if that inherent understanding of things is removed and you're only left with your own memory of such things, and God is not present in the lake of fire, and what would happen to that soul? Like, would that soul cease to be that person in some kind of way since they're cut off from good?
I kind of think you're overcomplicating it.
I'm just asking the question. I don't really know. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I would think the soul would warp and cease to be who they are.
The
who that
soul
person
is
was
like this,
originally. Like, they'd like, and maybe in a way of thinking it would be like they'd become like demons themselves.
The soul is your spiritual side. So, like, fear not the guy that can destroy your body, but fear the guy who can destroy your spirit and your body, right? So it's like,
yeah.
Can it?
It says in hell, though.
Yeah.
Destroy body and soul in hell. So it can't be talking about annihilation there, because we're referring to hell, not the lake of fire.
If your soul is being destroyed, it's in hell because you're sinning. Like, it's all about consent. Like, you have to destroy your own soul. So, like, if a con man is more dangerous, a con man that can destroy you spiritually is more dangerous than somebody who can just stab you and run away.
Yes, but what I'm asking is, what does the destruction of a soul look like?
Letting your vices or pleasures take control of you.
Okay, and I think you're probably right, but I think that would be taken to the extreme in hell. I think that would warp, like who you are, basically. Like what you like, what you value, whether you identify as a good person or a bad person, perhaps. Like, the things that make you would stop existing on some capacity, and you would, for all intent and purposes, become a completely different kind of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, without getting too much into the weeds here, because I don't want it to be like spook hour right now. But whenever we were having our supernatural weird stuff, one of the things that always struck me as odd about those things was they did seem to have an intellect, but it was foreign. Like, it was particularly malicious and almost kind of primitive in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about or not, like when you encountered that stuff, but I felt like those entities were purely reactive, if that makes sense. Like, they were smart, but they were like smart in one direction.
Yes.
It was very, like, they had the intellect of a human, but they were almost like an animal in the way that they were reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's like animals feeding off your energy, It's like,
yeah.
If you're scared of a dog, he's going to be more reactive when you come up to him. Like, if your heartbeat's elevated and all that, the dog's going to be spookier. Just so, like, a demon is the same thing. The more energy that you're putting off, the more it can take control of that energy.
Yeah. Well, for example, like, when we were doing a blessing on the house, like the place at Claremore, for example. If it had been like a regular human entity, let's say, you would think that once the person you're tormenting, as it were, you would think that thing would just leave because the jig is up. I mean, once you pray and you read the Bible, I mean, it's got to go. It's not like it can beat you in some kind of contest because you're not the one fighting it. You're asking God to fight it for you. It's not going to win that contest. So you think it would leave, but it didn't. It kind of stood its ground like a dog. Like it was futile, but it stood its ground anyway. And so I just kind of find that odd, that they would, I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to turn this into like, coast to coast or something, but but my point is I just feel like those things kind of have a lower intellect. And so I wonder if something like that happens to a soul in hell, like they become like a lower kind of intellect because they're cut off from God.
Like the Little Mermaid idea where Ursula turns her little people into those hands. They're like
little seaweed things. I mean, you could think about it like that. I mean, perhaps. That's a weird way to look at it. But yeah, I mean, that might be what I'm talking about. I'm not sure what I'm talking about. I've just been trying to play the idea out in my head and try to figure out a way to understand it. Because it does seem like they are on some level more primitive. And so I wonder... And that gets into the question of suffering too, because...
it's the same idea with AI. It's like they're feeding off what you're putting out. Like, that's it.
I think I know what you're saying, yeah. But it's a lot. The reason I wonder about it is because the guy's question specifically was about torture. Would God torture a human in hell or passively torture that person, let's say, because he knew about it? And one of the first things you learn when you grow up on a farm and and I think you have to actually interact with animals. Like you can't just watch them, because if you just like Jane Goodall sitting there and watching gorillas or whatever, it's like you can't really do that because people like superimpose their own ideas about what things are onto the animal, but that's not what's actually going on. When you start to interact with the animal and work with it, you realize that their brains do kind of work like an algorithm. Like it is kind of computer based. It's, for example, with cows, like they'll if you take their calf, they'll bawl and throw a fit only as long as the scent is on the calf. Once the scent is gone, that maternal instinct, quote unquote, shuts off like a switch. Yeah. And they don't even recognize it. That's not motherhood the way we experience motherhood. It's not. Yeah. It's a triggering mechanism.
They're kind of robotic.
Yeah.
Dude, I was listening to this stream the other day. This dude was like, our chickens, they have a sentience. They have personalities. I was like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like chickens are retarded. Dude, this guy is crazy. Your chickens do not have feelings, people.
Well, they're computers. Like people don't realize that, but they really are computers. It's quite crazy. Like was it Joe Salatin? I think is the guy's name. It's a farmer who does like the kind of more organic type farming, let's say. And he talks about in one of his books how those chickens, when they're grazing, like the reason, because you can leave those things out in your yard and they won't wander off and get lost. They'll always come back. And it's kind of crazy. And he's like, the reason they're like that is because they actually have like a radius around the coop. And so they migrate around the coop throughout the day. But if you move that coop like 8 inches, according to him, they can't even find it. Or like move it like 8 feet. Like it screws up their computer stuff or whatever up there. So
Jess said, tell them about putting the skin of a dead calf on an orphan cow.
Oh, right. Jess's dad did this. And
oh, no.
Basically, he had a mama die, and so he had an orphaned calf, and then he had a calf who lost the mom. And so what he did was he took the dead calf's... No, I said that wrong. Basically, a mom lost a calf, and a calf lost a mom. And so... Oh, and according to Jess, he did this several times. So whenever this would happen, is he would take the skin of the dead calf, put it on the living calf, and then give that living calf to the mom, and the mom would nurse it because it recognized the scent from the pelt. So the cow literally thought that orphaned calf was its own.
Yeah, that's a dumbass animal right there.
Yeah, well, it's a computer. It's a computer. It's signaling.
Yeah.
It's not actually motherhood in the abstract sense that we recognize.
Yeah.
And so I've wondered, like, does something happen like that with the souls in hell? Because, like, what if you lose that sense of identity? Because when it comes to suffering, like, an animal will suffer, but it's not the same way you and I suffer. There's no, like, I am in pain in the mind of an animal. There's no I. Like, there's no sense of self in the animal.
Which is what we should strive to be, right?
No. No. Not at all. Like, that sense of self, that understanding of abstract concepts comes from God. And that might be, in my opinion, how we are made in his image. That ability to comprehend love, that ability to comprehend beauty, that ability to comprehend justice. Like, the fact that we can understand the ways of God and even be able to, like, pick up on them. Like, the fact that, as goofy as it sounds, Jane Goodall or whoever might look at this behavior and go, that's motherhood. Well, she's taking something that she's sensing in the abstract and the spiritual that's just as real, and she's superimposing it onto the, like, physical, you know, into what she's seeing. She's attributing meaning to something that's amoral, essentially. But she's still detecting the meaning, you know. And that ability to understand right and wrong, to understand the nature of God, is like how we are still in some way connected to God. And if that gets removed, what's left of the soul? It might be an animal.
I have no idea.
It might just be the flesh.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
And so by your ideology, by your ideology, being an animal would be hell, because there's no way to understand right and wrong in the first place. There's no good or evil.
That's what I keep trying to say.
It's just pain, and you don't know why. And you couldn't even ask the question why, because you don't know what why is, because that's an abstract concept.
Right.
You just exist in a state of being that's like torment.
Flow state.
No, like...
This is the principle I've been trying to teach you.
It's a dumb principle, dude. You shouldn't be in a flow state. You should be able to respect and comprehend right and wrong. That doesn't mean you're going to know it perfectly or anything like that. But the fact that you don't know what right and wrong
is, though.
You know it in part. In part. The Bible says we know in part, then we shall know in full. Anyway. So, the fact that we can detect those things might be our connection to God. The fact that we can understand the concept of the word should, something should or shouldn't be, might be our connection to God. Now, what if that gets removed? What if there is no should, because there is no God, there is no source of right and wrong? Like, C.S. Lewis had this really interesting point, like an analogy for how, like, one of the ways we can know that God is real and that there is a right and wrong is he's like, the fact that people argue and make pleas and even complain about evil in the universe really doesn't make any sense, because it's like two notes. The way he put it was, it's like two notes on a sheet of music arguing over whether or not the song is bad. It doesn't make sense. What he was getting at was, it doesn't make sense for something within a work to critique the work. The fact that something is within a work and still critiques it means that, like, say, the notes on a sheet of music are aware of another song, as it were. Like, the fact that we look at predation and call it evil means that we are aware of a universe where predation doesn't exist. We have the ability to articulate things that are outside of the way things are. Like, Jess just added a comment. I think this is very helpful. She says, it's our knowledge of ought. We understand that there is a way things ought to be, and our understanding of that fact, that there is a way things should be versus shouldn't, tells us that there is a right order to the universe, that there is a right and wrong. And that means that there's something that exists outside of the universe. Otherwise, we would have no reason to think that predation is evil. We would just see it and go, But
I don't even know what that is. What's predation?
Like lion eating the gazelle. Predation, predator.
Huh.
Yeah, like the fact that we look at stuff and call it repugnant and evil, like really we shouldn't be able to do that. And the fact that we can, and the fact that we can tells us that we are connected to something outside of the universe.
But we can't.
We know.
You must be his children to enter the kingdom of heaven. This is the whole thing.
Yeah,
man.
and who is the most disgusted by predation? Children. People who see it for the first time. The young, when they see the lion eat the gazelle, cry. You and I might go, "Ha, stupid gazelle, didn't run fast enough." But the kid cries because the kid is the most connected to God. Or the kid is more closely connected to God than you.
I mean, some kids
closer
would
to
cry.
innocence.
My kids didn't care at all when I slaughtered a chicken in front of them.
Well, I cried. I hated growing up on a chicken farm. I was horribly
Just had to
upset by
explain
it.
to 'em.
Well, I guess maybe I felt better after it was explained to me, but I was horrified by it. The point is, though, there are things that offend you. There are certain evil deeds that offend you, and really they shouldn't, unless there is an objective source of ought and objective morality outside of the universe telling you that the thing you're seeing is wrong.
Jess said individuals who grow up in abusive environments know deep down things are not as they ought to be.
That's true. That's true. When I was taking psychology classes, one of the stories the professor talked about was there was a kid who grew up with shoplifters. And when the psychologist was talking to this person, they were like, even when I was a youngster, I knew that shoplifting was wrong. I knew they were doing wrong, even though it was all I'd seen my whole life. So there is a sense of ought that tells us that the universe we're in isn't the only possible universe, which means that we have to be somehow connected to something outside of the universe.
We have a new chatter.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Hello, Sin Hicks. He said, "What in the actual mushroomed forest is this?"
Well, you came right down in the middle of the conversation, man. I don't know what to tell you. It does seem like we're on shrooms, I'm sure. We are talking about the nature, what happens to a soul if it goes to hell and is cut off from God. We're just spitballing a hypothetical.
Yep.
So there you go. And that led
You
to
got a
that
better
led
idea.
Yeah, if you have a
can
better
come
idea,
on,
tell
tell
us.
us.
Yeah. But we're also talking, I guess that led to a conversation about the existence of objective morality.
Yep.
He next asks, "Are you the brains of this project? Please tell. Please tell me no."
Which one of us? There's been multiple people talking. Is it you call me the pretentious guy with the 70s collar or the other guy with the mustache or something? I don't know. You have to tell us who you're referring to. I'm Gary. The guy with the mustache is Cody, and the dude with the awesome beard is Trevor.
Yep.
So you have to identify which one of us you're referring to. I don't think there is a brains to this project, actually, though. I think this is all just a wonderful accident. So
we're all just the bronze.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I don't know what we're doing.
All right, so we talked about that question about the souls. What happens to the soul once it's in hell? That was just a question I presented last week. We didn't really explore it super deep, which I guess is what we just did. So, does anybody have any final thoughts on that topic before we go on?
I don't think so.
Okay. Let's see if there's any other scriptures I wanted to use to describe what I thought hell was. Let's see here.
Sin Hicks said I was catching up. Sorry.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. So, let's see. I think we got up to Jude 1:6. It was Thessalonians, and then there was where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Both of those.
See, man, that doesn't make sense to me. How do you explain that? Worms don't live in fire.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was about to get at, dude. There's a chance. Now, I'm not making a definitive doctrinal claim here, but there is a chance that both are allegories for like destruction. You know what I'm saying? Like
Okay.
like pain, suffering, destruction. But there may be physical worms in hell. I don't know. It could be. You know.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying it.
You're the one that says
lines
worms
up,
are like parasites are demons anyway. So,
it lines up with my idea pretty good. Like if you have parasites, it's because you're feeding a vice, right? If you're addicted to ice cream, you're gonna have parasites that eat ice cream, and that like you're gonna get fat and you're living in hell because you're chasing a vice all the time, and those worms are existing simpatico with that process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it just checks out with like living in hell with the worms and everything.
Jessica says worm is also an old school name for dragon. So the worm could also be a demon in that case. So the dragon lives in fire and breathes fire. Jessica added that, yeah. Dragon lives in fire and breathes fire. So could also be a descriptor for a demon.
So do worms live in fire?
No, they die immediately.
I would imagine it's an allegory of some kind, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the literal. It could be literal.
Fire is literally a representation of purification. I mean,
well, I think it is. I think it's Christ explaining spiritual concepts to physical people. You know what I mean? And that's kind of hard to do, because we're talking about how do things work without a physical body, And I think these are basically symbolic terms. Like, could it be that there's actual fire? Maybe. I don't think there necessarily has to be. I don't think you have to dig in your heels doctrinally to say that. It could be just a symbol. And same thing with worms. It could be that both of these are just describing destruction. The same way that I kind of feel like the Streets of Gold thing is basically saying that the stuff that you value the most in heaven isn't going to be worth anything. The things that you value the most on earth isn't going to be worth anything in heaven. That merit-based system we have doesn't work. Now, could both be true? That that merit system that we value here isn't worth anything up there, and the streets are paved with gold? Yes, but I think the point of mentioning the gold is that the value systems are different. And so it could be something similar here. Like, is there actually worms and fire in hell? Maybe, but the point of bringing them up is that they're talking about destruction. In this case, the destruction of the soul. So.
Cynic said the fire is the downgrade of material.
That could be too. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. No, actual worms don't. Dragons do. The fire is a downgrade of material. Jessica says worm, or WYRM, aka worm, is an old term for serpent or dragon. So there you go.
All right.
Or Cody could be right. Let's talk about those parasites in your gut on the control panel. Going, eat the cake, eat the cake. So.
You're good, Sin Hicks. We're not gonna ignore you though.
You're good, man. So
we like good comments like that.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that's everything I wanted to cover here. Was there something else? Oh, yes. I wanted to justify my case that the devil was an accuser, and that basically the devil is LARPing in hell. Like, basically, if there is literal fire in hell, the demons lit it. It's not that God is punishing people for being bad, as it were. It's that, there's really only two realms. There's the realm with God, the realm without God, and the devil exists in the realm without God. And since he's the biggest dog in town, he's going to do what he wants. And, in Isaiah, he says, I will be like the Most High, right? I should probably pull that up as well here. I'll do that here in just a sec. Actually, let me just go ahead and do it, because I wanted to present the question, in what way could the devil think he's like the Most High, or think he could be like the Most High?
Just because he wants to.
Most High. Yeah, let's see. This is Isaiah 14:14. Let's see if we can just get the whole verse here. Oh, thank you for giving me the actual King James version instead of feeding me the NIV by default. I appreciate it. Okay. So, let me start where this passage actually... Because this is talking about a king at first, and then it transitions into a commentary about Satan. So, let's see.
Satan is the adversary.
Yes. Excuse me here. I'm trying to find it because it's a very famous passage, so I'm trying to find... Okay, here we go. Starting at verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the cloud. I will be like the Most High. And yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. So yeah, hell's also kind of tied with the pit as well, which we've seen in a couple other passages. But yeah, I repeat.
Whoa. Hey, 16 says, They that see shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms?
Mm-hmm.
So Satan makes earthquakes.
It's
cool, huh?
Well, it's an analogy basically saying this is the man that brought the... Yeah, it's hyperbole. They're going to go, is this the man? Like, in the day of judgment, they're going to see how unimpressive the devil is, because the devil's a cockroach.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I wanted to pose that question, in what way could the devil think he's like the Most High? And I would propose the idea that it couldn't be because, he thinks he's as powerful as God. He's clearly not.
Because he's riding around on the Dark Knight satellite.
Dark Knight.
That's why.
It's like
he's not Batman.
Thanos.
What? No. Remember the Black Knight satellite?
Yeah, we still have to do an episode on that. You're right.
Yeah.
Where's Jen when you need her?
Right. All right.
I still have that video.
He's up there on his... what was the school called? Sky High. He's up there on his Sky High school, floating around.
That is an old movie. I like that movie.
All right. Gosh, I have so many tabs. This is ridiculous. Okay.
Ridiculous.
Okay.
Just said, imitation. Satan tried to be like God. He set up a kingdom like God based in love.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to imitate God, do these poor imitations of it, distortions.
Love is evil. Spell it backwards. I'll show you.
But I wanted to read this thing about the devil to kind of explain how basically he's the accuser. Not based in love. Yeah, I was.
There you go. I was
confused.
I was like,
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah, I was wondering where you're going with that. So, okay. Come on. All right, so Revelations 12:10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. So the devil's up making accusations before God all the time. And that, understanding that, we go to Job. So there was a man in the land of Uz, I probably mispronounced that, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance was also 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and fire, and 500 she-asses, and the very great household. So that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his son went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And so it was, when the days of their feasting were gone, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. So, point being, devil makes accusations. And you can see that in this first chapter. Jessica says, Job is tough for me. Yeah, me too. It's a hard read, man. It's a hard read. So, since the devil is the accuser, I kind of feel like he is probably in hell punishing people based on his own distorted version of a moral code. I don't think God is actually the one doing the punishing. So, that's the short answer.
I agree.
And so, have I defended all my statements using scripture? Is there anything else that I need to cover?
I think so. I mean, everything you've said sounded pretty based.
Okay, that's good. Trevor?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
if I've said anything stupid, you can correct me in the chat, in the comments, and I'll try to address it. Do my best. So, all right. Now, Trevor, you wanted me to answer this question, right?
I have a question.
Okay, and so we're going to watch this video because it articulates your question. Okay.
This question is Earth hell?
Okay.
Are they the same place?
Okay.
Because you hear all the time people talking about, hell on earth. I'm going through hell.
Yeah.
Statements like that. So, are we already there?
Okay.
And we're constantly trying to find our way back to God.
Yeah. Do you want to watch the video, or are you just wanting me to answer the question?
That's my simple question.
All right.
This video just goes into it.
Okay, well, if anybody wants to
It's the same
watch it,
question.
it's called Bible Story. The YouTube channel is called Bible Story. The video is Earth is Hell. The real hell is not what you think. So you can watch
It's an AI video, so.
Oh, well, of course it is. The robots are telling you you're in hell and you should just off yourself so the robots can rule the world. It's all part of the conspiracy. Anyway, so...
But it talks about it in the first few minutes.
Gotcha.
About my question. And then it goes off on a random tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say...
I would... Yeah.
Go for it, Cody.
No, you go.
I would say the answer is no. I mean...
Why not?
Why not? Because, first of all, you have a bunch of distinctions about hell. Actually, let me go to my Word document. Like, if you, for example, look at Luke 16:19, you can see, like, phrases like Abraham's bosom. You can see hell. Like, basically, there's a lot of different terminology explaining, like, the different components. You have the pit. You have Sheol. You have Hades. You have Abraham's bosom. You have paradise. You have the kingdom of heaven. You have heaven. There's all these different components that suggest a actual system, And so to sit there and say that earth is hell is to kind of ignore literally all the descriptors about hell. Like, if earth is hell, then what is outer darkness? Like, if earth is hell, then what is the distinction between the lake of fire and hell, or the distinction between Hades and, like, heaven or paradise? Like, how do you make distinctions under that idea?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's not. I mean, it sucks, but it's not hell. So, yeah, plus if you look at the Bible, there's all these, analogies for fire and worms, and, like, these are allegories of destruction. Now, regardless of what happens to the soul, or not, I mean, the point is, though, you are being destroyed in hell in some measure. So we're not being destroyed here.
What would you say? What would you say to? Yeah.
Okay, one at a time. Cody, what'd you
We are
ask?
being destroyed, though.
No, we're not.
Entropy.
Yeah, we're dying, but that doesn't mean your soul is dying.
So what would you say to someone who is not biblical, not Christian, not religious, not anything, but they are suffering mentally, emotionally, they're going through so much stuff, and they ask you that same question?
Well, I would say, first of all, that the distinction between here and hell is that things are a season. Like, you might be suffering now. That doesn't mean you're going to be suffering for forever. And one of the points about suffering on earth is that it points you closer to God. It teaches you about yourself. You build character through suffering and pain. You can't do that in hell because you're not building towards anything. What's the point of learning to be patient in hell?
That's a good point.
Nothing, yeah. But you can, patience is obviously valuable in this life.
Okay, I can just imagine Satan attacking you in hell. I have patience. You can't hurt me anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Sin Hicks says, Job, Rephe, hell is a place without God. Earth has God, even if he is not present. That was Jessica. Yeah. So,
That's
yeah.
true.
So,
that's a good point.
Does that answer your question, Trevor, or do I need to go further?
No, you answered it pretty good.
Okay. Are you sure? Because I can go on. I can ramble.
I am
for
never
forever.
sure.
Like, I can just
Never
keep
sure.
babbling.
It's good.
All right. Sweet.
That's good.
Okay. Not as present. Not as present. Gotcha, Jess. Gotcha. Okay. Well, if we've covered, is that everything? I think we've covered everything.
I think so.
Sweet. Oh, I promised an hour and a half, and it's been almost 3 hours. I suck at keeping time. So,
You did good.
Well, thank you, sir.
You left out
You
the
left out
as
the
before.
as before. Oh, you're criticizing my reading skills. I've been doing a lot of reading tonight. Be nice to me.
He's a reading master. Leave him alone.
And I am not, but thank you. So, okay.
Dude, my daughter is. She can, oh my goodness, she can go through a book that thick in 3 days.
Nice.
Dude, it's
Wow.
nuts.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Heck yeah.
All right, gentlemen, any final thoughts before we wrap this live stream up?
No, sir.
I have final thoughts.
Go for it. What are they?
They're already gone.
Nice.
Okay. Well,
Do you want to watch that funny video?
yes, let's watch that funny video, Trevor. I would like that very much.
It's one of them in chat.
I don't believe you. I bet it's not funny.
How about you tell me the title of it? Because every time I freaking go to the chat, it like distorts my video.
No. I put the actual link instead of the title. Because I figured out how to grab the link instead of the title.
Well, that's what I'm saying. When I'm on Zoom, though, like it moves the windows out of the frame on OBS. So if you could just tell me the title of it, I'll. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. No, stop. Sorry, my computer's like messing up.
Just tell them the name of the video.
Okay. Bro risked it all for content. BRO.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Bro risked it all for content.
Surprised it doesn't say Sigma in there somewhere.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
it's a short.
Like my
It's
son
great.
walking around, Skibbity Ohio toilet.
You
Riz.
feel old yet?
I'm like, what are you
It's
talking about, dude?
It's that,
This right
yeah,
here?
that one. Yep,
Okay,
that's it.
here we go. Here we go.
The other day, I was brushing my teeth. I realized
My bad. I need to zoom. Okay, there we go.
that my toothbrush comes with like this UV thing that's supposed to clean the bristles. And I was like, that's weird. I didn't know the sun could clean stuff, right? So I was like, why don't we just put another sun over India? Tough crowd. Okay, the other day, the light in my ceiling fan, it went out, and I was too short to reach it. So I had to get a step ladder because my real ladder left when I was 5. There we go. Cool. The other day, I made a website for an orphanage, but the kids, they had a really hard time finding the homepage. Nothing? Okay, how about, why can't Michael Jackson go 500 feet within a school? Because he's dead.
He seriously got up in a actual courtroom and did that.
Because he's dead.
You see that guy shaking his head with just pure hatred?
Yeah, it was some sort of hearing.
All right. One more time because it makes me happy.
Oh gosh.
Guys, thank you so much for watching, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next time.
Deuces, yo.